I know a lot of people that over here, we've known each other, some of you are new faces. Those who are new, my name is Ashish Arora. Speakers know me, so I don't have to introduce in front of them. I founded HR Anexi about 17 years back. And just by virtue of doing my PhD, people started calling me Dr. Ashish Arora. I mean, I have no other reason to be a Dr. Ashish Arora. It's just Ashish. It's good. Right. 17 years has been a very interesting journey for running HR. I'm a practitioner. I actually started with HR and then moved to business. Actually then moved to sales and then moved to business. Now been an entrepreneur for about 17 years. So interesting journey. So since majority of this room is new, good morning everyone. Let's get started. We have the gurus here. Majority of the people in this room are new. So I think it'll be only fair that I give a perspective on what HR Anexi is and what FutureScope does. So we know that in the last, centuries have gone through all kind of disruptions. But the last 8 to 10 years, we have seen some crazy disruption. As they say that, the world would change every 10 years until about 20, 30 years back. Now they say the world changes every 3 years. And I just don't know in the next few years as we get there, by 2030 or so, people might start saying the world will change every 6 months to a year. All right, so we know that the disruptions in terms of AI, in terms of 5G, connectivity, digital financial movements, UPI, the disruption that caused in India, the generative AI and automation, robotics and whatnot, all kind of disruptions that are happening, changing the face of the world, changing the way we work. All right, imagine those who are as young as me in this room, 20, 30 years back, what kind of technology we used, and look at what technology we use today. The way we travel today. The way we worked 20, 30 years back, the way we work today. The way we interacted with people, the way we interact today globally, right? Huge amount of disruption that's happening. And we know that as business leaders, owners, CXOs in this room, we have no choice but to navigate these disruptions. Just no choice. We also know that, humankind did adapt from millennials, from being monkeys to the humans that we are. Right? The adaptability today is much more required than what it was. I run 2 different companies. I don't say run, but I'm part of 2 different companies. HR Anexi, which is a HR advisory consulting company, where our average age is about 37. Mentoria, which is a edtech company or a mentor tech company, we mentor young children. Average age is 21 or 20, maybe 23, right? The way, and I'm the managing director of both the companies, the way I deal with my consultants, 130 plus consultants in HR Anexi, and the way I deal, or way I have to deal, I can't say I deal, the way I have to deal with the 23, 25-year-olds in Mentoria, right? And because we mentor young children, youth and the college graduates, which are all in the age group of about 13 to about 20, 25, right? Such a massive world, different world, such a different world. Sometimes I sit we have a career discovery center in Delhi. Sometimes I sit in the center and the youngsters walk in, right, who are 18, 19-year-old going to college or just about passing college. Their lingo, the way they dress up, the way they talk, right, is so different than when I meet senior business professionals, right? It took me many years to adapt, but I had no choice. I mean, I knew that if I don't adapt, I'll die. I will not be able to run that. So we know that we need to adapt come what may, whether it's competition, changing customer expectation, or the way efficiency, productivity, growth is looked at, not only by business owners, but by the new gen professionals. I don't remember 25, 30 years back when I hired people will ask me a question, what's the vision of the company? Today when I hire youngsters, I say, what? They don't look at 10-year vision, what's the next 2 years vision of the company? Right? We don't have a choice but to adapt. Well, we have gurus who talk about innovation, but we know that innovation is no more a necessity. I mean, it's not it's a luxury, it's a necessity. If we don't innovate, if we don't figure out how to do better in what we are doing, we all talk about Kaihan philosophy 30 years back, it's pretty much same, it's becoming better than what we were yesterday in every aspect of your work. Right? If we don't innovate, we will cease to exist. And obviously, the company, particularly post-COVID, the way well-being has taken place, and therefore you will have a very interesting 3-hour session on well-being. We have no choice but to human-centric. The kind of workforce that we deal with, 4 generations almost that we deal with, from the baby boomers to the millennials and the Gen X and Gen Z that we deal with, we have no choice but to have, there can't be one-size-fits-all engagement, well-being methodology. We've got to figure out two different ways for different people. All right, because it will strike very differently. I mean, I always say jokingly that if there are two kids at home, while they are same DNA, but parents got to deal differently. Imagine when you got 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 1 lakh employees in your company, right? They are different DNAs, different personality. How do you deal differently? So organizations will have to figure out various ways to be human-centric. And because this is the future that we're facing, we knew that as we work with organizations, we knew that we got to figure out some way to help our clients, our customers, potential customers, and the industry at large to see the future. Not that we know all of it, and therefore we invite gurus and every year, but at least at least there'll be some authority or some organization which helps you see the future, and that's what FutureScope is all about. All right? Essentially, the platform which promotes collaborative learning. Right? We work together, and you can see we are about 150 in this room, representing maybe about 70, 80 companies or more, right? Collaborative learning about different kinds of industries. We promote outside-in approach. In the last two summits that we've had, this is the third one, we've had close to about 40 gurus or maybe more come and give their perspectives on different kinds of subject. Right? This summit between today and tomorrow, we've got 14 gurus speaking different kinds of subjects, from innovation to well-being to outthinking to strategy and to whatnot. Different kind of subject. So it is the outside-in approach. While we can wear house blinkers and say, "Hamare yahan to sab theek hai, everything is all right, we are growing at more than market, our CAGR is much faster than the market," but we don't know when the carpet will be swept under. We got to be ready. So therefore, outside-in approach. It's also a platform where we debate, discuss, challenge each other, learn from each other. And therefore, I'm assuming that while in the breaks or during lunchtime or wherever you get time, talk to each other. Just don't stick around with your own company people, because that we anyway do all the time in organizations. Stick around, talk to speakers, talk to other people. What are you doing? I mean, there are all kind of industry represented here. Talk to each other. There's a huge amount of learning. Essentially, the platform FutureScope is to be future ready. It's an attempt to create. We haven't yet got there. I know it takes years to get there. Well, that's an attempt to help organizations to be future ready. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Just quickly, for those who are first time, we had two formats. Obviously, it takes, we're all evolving, and so is HR and Anexi. The first year, 2022, we didn't call it FutureScope. We didn't have that name. We called it the Great Rethink, and we just named it after the Great Resignation drama that was happening in post-COVID 2021. We call it Great Rethink. And we had 4 different subjects, very interesting. We work, those who know HR and Anexi, we work with 2 segments of companies. One with family-owned businesses. We do a lot of work with family-owned businesses, help them in their transformation journey. And we work with large corporates in their leadership development, management development, assessments, engagements, and so on and so forth. So therefore, if you'll see our summit always structured around 2 different formats, one for family-owned businesses and one for large corporates or CHROs and so on and so forth. So without getting into too much of details, but the 4 subjects that we had in our 2022 summit were about the great conundrum in the organization when you're growing, that should you focus on the growth or should you focus on the culture, preserving the culture. Very interesting session that we had with very interesting speakers. Then 2022 world was still uncertain. So in the uncertain world that we're living in, because just immediate post-COVID, what's the leadership antidote? How really the leadership has to evolve in the uncertain times? That's the second subject. We constituted something called Wellbeing Award because we realized that well-being is becoming a very critical thing. It's no more about employee engagement. While the employee engagement is important, but I think it's just transitioning. Like the employee satisfaction to employee engagement is transitioning into well-being. Pretty much like customer satisfaction to customer delight to customer obsession. It's transitioning. The same thing focuses on the customer. It's just that as organizations evolve, as industry evolve, you evolve how you want to deal with people. So we have constituted a Wellbeing Award in 2022, where we had close to about 55 companies participated, and we had some Wellbeing Awards. And then the world was moving into hybrid situations, so we essentially had a discussion on hybrid working in 2022. These were the 4 subjects, and these are some of the speakers. Those who attended, you will remember some of these names. All right, 17 speakers who were there in 2022 summit of ours. 2023, we coined the word FutureScope. We said, no, it's got to be FutureScope, although still evolving. And we finally, hopefully, we found a logo or something. But as I said, the intent has always been that to give back to the fraternity, give back to the industry, and work with leaders, business owners, as to what more can we do for you. While we do what we do in consulting, but what more we can do. So the 4 subjects that we had in 2022 was how do you drive sustainable growth? So again, leadership, how do you really maximize the muscle? How do you build the leadership muscle? Because finally it's the leaders who's got to lead the organization. You might have the best of people, but the leaders are not engaged. We always say engagers must be engaged. If leaders are not up there, right, whether in potential, performance, or engagement, how they lead people, right, it's a challenge. Then since 2022-23 start, the world, the AI, ChatGPT and whatnot swept the wave. We thought we also ride the wave, and therefore we had some very interesting speakers talking about AI and how AI is being used in businesses, more focused from HR perspective. We again had the Wellbeing Award in 2022, the second edition, where we have close to 110 companies participate, some very large companies. And then we had a very interesting discussion for family-owned businesses, particularly family-owned businesses who are getting the second and third generation in the business. Then how do you build your next workforce with the next workforce? Because typically we see there are 2 kind of family businesses when the next generation comes in. One, the kid goes to some university in US, UK, Australia, wherever comes and joins straight as a director and starts as a CEO, director of the company. And there are some family businesses who really help people grow. They make them start from scratch. They really train them for a few years before they get up to one of the board seats or lead the business, right? So, we can debate what is right, what is wrong, but that's not the subject of today. But essentially, we were helping family businesses understand how some of the successful family businesses have transitioned their next generation into business, how they really trained, groomed them, and we had very interesting combination of a father and a son, father and a daughter, mother and a son, and so on and so forth, talking about their transition. So these were our speakers, 24 speakers that we had last year, different kinds of subjects. So this is FutureScope 23. Well, we are in FutureScope 24, gentle ladies, and welcome to this journey between today and tomorrow. I can bet, I'm hoping that the majority of you will stay back for today afternoon session. Very interesting session. I'll talk about all of that. And of course, the tomorrow's session as well. So 3 sessions that we have this summit or this conclave FutureScope 1, which we're going to start in the next 10 minutes, is about how do you drive innovation from within. Right? As I work with so many businesses and entrepreneurs, one of the things that they always say that we want logo mein ownership hona chahiye. We want people to have ownership. We want people to feel for the company. Right? Well, that's the subject we're going to challenge or speak about. Well, there are some myths, there are some mysteries, there are some ways of doing that. How to really drive innovation within. Innovation is not something that only a GE and an Amazon and a Tesla would do. Innovation is something that everybody can do that. And that's what our 4 gurus who are here are going to talk about it. How do you really drive innovation from within? How do you make your employees turn them into entrepreneurs, right? And really build the transformation of the growth journey. That's subject 1. We're going to spend about 2.5 hours, 3 hours on that subject. Our next subject today afternoon is about well-being, where we have a very interesting lineup of speakers from very, very different kind of industries, right? From banking, probably the largest bank, or if not the second largest bank in the country, HDFC Bank, to pharma companies, to logistics companies, and so on. So they're very different kind of speakers who will talk about well-being as to how well-being is becoming a boardroom subject. It's no more HR subject. And those who are HR people think well-being means hamara HR wala kaam, HR. Well-being is the boardroom subject, because if you don't take care of well-being at the board level, and there's no strategic investment from the CEOs and the board and the owners, right? Well-being will only be let's do some birthday celebrations and some Christmas party and some picnics and so on, and maybe some sponsor some insurance, go do some scholarships and so. It'll just remain there. So we have Wellbeing Award this year as well. We have close to 120 companies that participated, some very large names you will get to hear, and we have our winners. We'll be announcing it today. We'll have our well-being speakers and also the jury. Our third subject this summit is tomorrow afternoon. It's a masterclass. We haven't done a paid masterclass. We're not a company which does custom or paid masterclass, but since we were getting a guru in Outthinking, whom I have followed for almost 12 years, and I'll talk about him in a while. Right? An absolutely phenomenal book called Outthinking the Competition. It would be a great idea to have a masterclass while he consults for various kind of companies, and he will have a private session with various companies. But it'd be a great idea to have a masterclass for entrepreneurs, strategy heads, owners who really believe that they need to outthink now, do something different, and build a strategy which will make them a little ahead of the competition. So that's a masterclass tomorrow morning from 9:30 to 1:30. These sessions can last for days, but at least we'll get a starting point tomorrow. Right? It's a master class, as in it's not a learning, it's not a Gyan session. It's a master class where we'll sit with the workbook, right? And we'll be perform part of a workshop, right? And that's what I've been recommending to a lot of people, and I know a lot of you are attending, that get your team, get 2, 3, 4 members of your company and attend it together, because it'll really help you. You sit on a table and actually have some strategic thoughts about outthinking by end of tomorrow, or by afternoon. So that's tomorrow. All right, let's begin with driving innovation from within. All right, very quickly. I'm reminded of a situation when I do a context setting of this subject. Many years back, I was part of one of the founding team at Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, ISB, if you've heard of ISB in Hyderabad. And I was leading a program which was for CEOs, people who were just about getting CEOs, right? They were like deputy CEOs or COOs, and about getting to CEO position. It was a 1-month AMP, 3 weeks in ISB and 1 week in Kellogg School. It was a collaborative program between us and ISB, between Kellogg School. So as a program director, my job used to be that because then I was not a PhD, so I was not allowed to teach in a B school. Because in global B schools, you need to be a PhD to be able to teach. So therefore, as a program director, my role was that I will get into a session, introduce the speaker, and just give a context on the subject, whatever, whether the speaker is talking about strategy, talking about marketing, finance, whatever subjects. And then after a 4-hour session, I will sit there, take my notes. After a 4-hour session, I will do maybe a quick 1-2 minute summary of what we learned. So that was my normal drill. So when we moved to when I took this 30 CEOs to Kellogg School, because that 1 week was at Kellogg School, one of the sessions was being done by the marketing guru. You guys remember marketing guru? Phil Kotler. Philip Kotler was doing a marketing session for 4 hours. Now imagine, here's a simple MBA graduate, Ashish Arora, HR person, though called a program director 20 years back, or more, 22 years back. Phil Kotler walks into this beautiful, nice hall, 30 so to the CEO sitting, and I'm supposed to, the program director, introduce Phil Kotler and set context for Phil Kotler. All right? So the only word I could say there, when God is in the room, you can't really introduce God and you can't set context for God. Phil Kotler is God for marketing. I was really humbled seeing him with this tall guy, very beautiful personality. It was 70 plus even then, right? I mean, there was no way you can set context for Phil Kotler. You can't introduce Phil Kotler, right? So I feel almost the same humbling feeling today, because we've got 4 innovation gurus in this room. There are 2 who've been consulting for 2-3 decades, and I don't know how many numerous hundreds of companies they would have consulted with and helped them innovate. And there are 2 practitioners, one somebody who's leading innovation of the largest group in the country, largest conglomerate in the country, one of the largest in the world probably, and one who's a young startup, although not so young anymore, 20 years, and has got some amazing, absolutely amazing innovation. And when I get to introduction, you'll be surprised that of course it took a lot of toll on me to get these 4 people in this room. I mean, it was not easy, I can tell you. And therefore, when you see me, the temperature rising, sweating, it's all because of the last 2 months of hard work chasing these 4 gentlemen to get in this room. But since I have a job to do, which is setting context and driving innovation, I mean, I will probably I know I'll do a very bad job in front of these 4 gurus, and I only request these 4 gurus to shut their ears and eyes, because I will not speak even 1.1% of what you're going to speak in the next 2 hours. But since I have a job to do, might as well do that, right? So we talked about current reality a while back. We know that all of us in this room are navigating all kind of evolving landscape, disruptions, technology advancement, all of it, shifting customer expectation, employee expectation. I talked about a while back. We know that we are in a bit of a jam, right? And it is a jam. We can keep our head up and say, "Oh, no, sab theek hai, acha chal raha hai, very good." But we are a jam. We know that every morning, right? However large organization you are, every morning when you get there, we're struggling. What next and what next? We're always wanting to keep ahead. We know in a bit of a jam, right? And we also know that in the world we live in, what's at stake? We know that whatever we do today will be copied tomorrow. The traditional models of innovation that, let's become better, are becoming outpaced. Organizations that do not innovate will be obsolete soon. And therefore, we see all the time with the new age companies, old age companies, all the time putting innovation. While companies have put I see a lot of progressive companies, and I'm saying progressive in a nice manner. Progressive companies had put up head of innovations, VP of innovations, or have built innovation functions. but I don't know whether that's still enough. That could be still superficial. All right? So obviously, what's going on is, from our perspective, we believe that to remain competitive in the world we live in, we'll have no choice. We can't just function within one innovation department. Imagine you're a 10,000 people company or a 100 people company, doesn't matter. And a 100 people company will not have an innovation department, but in more often than not, unless you are that kind of a tech company. But largely mid-sized, large-sized company, you'll have an innovation function. But the other 2,500 people, innovation वाला उनका काम है, हमारा कोई काम नहीं innovation नहीं, हम अपना काम करें. Let me focus on my work. Let the innovation guy be responsible for product process innovation. All right? We know that if we want to remain competitive, as I said earlier, it is not a choice. We've got to get there. We've got to figure out a way that how do we make sure our employees become innovative? How do we make sure that employees start thinking like entrepreneurs? We all talk about every HR I speak to, or every business owner I speak to, I say, what are your leadership competencies? One of the leadership competencies always is entrepreneurial spirit. All right? The question we need to ask ourselves, what is that we are doing to really develop that entrepreneurial spirit in our organization? All right? Hold your heart. I don't want an answer, but hold your heart and you know that while we talk about entrepreneurial spirit, but what are we really doing? All right? We know that entrepreneurship in the world we live in become a competitive advantage. And I know there are some companies in this room who have really built that very beautifully. At least two companies I know very well built extremely beautifully. It's a competitive advantage because it will accelerate innovative cycle. It will make us stay ahead of competition. It will unlock, right, new revenue stream. While Rajiv will talk about, one of the speakers will talk about various myths and conundrums, but here is one or two conundrums I'll talk about certainly. What is really stopping us from making such innovative company or from innovating internally? In my view, there are 3 or 4 things. One, the bureaucracy in the company. Right? We're a company. I am the owner. I'll decide. Bureaucracy in the company. Or because there are, with due respects to all the people who've been in the system for long, but there are people who have been in the company for 25 years, and there are youngsters who talk a different language. I have been in this company for 25 years. I will tell you how to do things. I know how to do things. You have just passed out a few years back. What do you know about innovation? We have built this company. Bureaucracy. Huge bureaucracy. The old versus new. Massive in the mid-segment companies. And even in the large companies, really. All right. The culture and risk aversion. That the culture is just no culture. Just do your job, that's it, get out. That's the culture we build. We don't build any culture of innovation. We don't want to take people to take risk. No, risk means I will lose money. I don't want to take risk at all. I don't want to lose money. Even if it is a few lakhs rupees, I don't want to lose money. We build culture, system, processes that we just don't want to look at outside. Just do your job and get out. And of course, my favorite is structures. We build such structures which are so siloed. While we talk about in a boardroom that we want to break these silos, we want to have a collaborative culture, but our structures define silos. This function, this department, this leader, siloed, created silos. And we don't let people collaborate. I've seen large family businesses that I work with, right, when we talk about, let's have all the leaders together for a management review meeting. Right, say, no, let's just do meetings one by one. So let's get together. But they believe that if we get together, people will, collaborate, or people will, make kind of a union agenda or a joint agenda and so on and so forth. People are scared, or owners are scared. So structure, and not only mid-sized companies, even large companies, particularly large is much bigger, because you build such siloed structure in large companies that people are not able to collaborate at all. While we talk about that, I'm not going to talk about all of these because I know the gurus will talk various examples from the world. But I want to talk about a very interesting story. Actually, I had a couple, but I think in interest of time, I'll talk about only one. We had Nagesh last year. Everybody knows Nagesh. Anybody from Shopper Stop here? So we had Nagesh last year. He gave a very interesting story. Right? He said, about 20, 25 years back, when people would walk into Shopper Stop, typical turnaround time, if men particularly, if you bought a trouser from Shopper Stop, the turnaround time was 24 hours. This means you bought the trouser today, and because of alteration, they will give it to you next day, because it takes time for alteration. And you have to come back next day and pick it up. So Nagesh said, who's the founder, chairman of Shopper Stop still, he said that I went to my leadership team. I said, but why is these small shops in the city or anywhere close to station, they're able to turn around in 15, 20 minutes, right? The alteration of the trouser, and we take 1 day. So the think tank management team, with due respects to all the IIM, they all like management graduates, they all sit together, think through for weeks together, And after 3 months, they come up with they've cracked the code that says we can do the turnaround time in 12 hours. So 100% improvement. Fabulous, 100% improvement. Now, even if you do 12 hours, if you buy the trouser today, you don't buy a trouser at 11 o'clock in the morning. It'll still be 11, you'll be your close. It's still next day. So while they crack the code, so to say, the think tank leadership team, right, but still it'll take next day only. You haven't really solved the problem. So once I was walking to my store, the store in Andheri, the first store that they opened in Andheri West, and this tailor master who was walking around, I just called the tailor master. I said, why do we take 12 hours and the other small shops can do in 15, 20 minutes? He said, sir, I don't know. You have decided. I can do in 15 minutes. Just give me one more machine and one helper. In 15 minutes, I'll turn around. Look at that. The think tank, the leadership team, all the engineers, management graduates thinking through, took 3 months to solve the problem. Efficiency increased by 100%. Right? But here the tailor master right at the floor, which we never consulted with, I said 15 minutes. And things changed for them. Right? We have several examples. One of the things that we did when the COVID struck, where one company we're working with, very shortly I'll talk about one company we're working with. So just to give you, I can't talk about the company because one of the persons of the company is here. Let's say they were producing about 1,000 units with 200 people. Right? There was some manufacturing company. And we knew that they were manufacturing issues because the way they laid down machines and so were very haphazard because they grew like that. A small company grew to be a mid-sized company. COVID happened, everybody, the workers went back to their hometown and whatnot. And because we were managing HR, we were told by the MD, "Aap kuch karo in logo ke liye," because they had about 25 people, workers staying in the campus. So we started talking to them over Zoom as we got to Zoom and so on and so forth. And in about 2-3 weeks' time, as we got to them, we said, boss, one of the issues that we had is our layout of the factory. Why don't we just change the layout? Since we have now 2, 3, 4 weeks, we don't know how much time, let's change the layout of the factory. Right? And suggested by the supervisor, like the one, when I say supervisor, somebody who's a matured worker, like a senior worker who was like a supervisor, who was staying on campus. In 3 weeks' time, over Zoom calls and telephone calls, these guys worked together and relaid the entire factory. And as they restarted in May, whenever the lockdown got over, they were 100 people. They only needed 100 people, and they were manufacturing 2,500, 3,000 units. So 250 people manufacturing 1,000 units or lesser, and a lot of wastages. 100 people doing 3 times over. Just the layout. All done. No production head required, no strategy head required, no innovation group required. It's done by the 20 workers, helpers who were staying in the factory. Done by them. So to me, these are examples of entrepreneurship, and I will hear more of them. My one big issue that when I work with consulting, when I work with organizations, is this thought that comes up all the time, which is the big conundrum: innovation or sustenance. Roti kapda makan pe dekhe ki innovation kare. Right? What do we do? Should I focus on that? Big conundrum. And I'm just reading questions. I have no answers, and I'm sure we have gurus who will help us find those answers. Right? I'm going to just move ahead very quickly. I'm going to just move very quickly. Not really, but we know there's a huge amount of role of leadership, and we'll hear from the gurus about really enabling this entrepreneurship. Right? I'm going to skip this. Okay, I'm going to ask 2 questions only with the raise of hands, and I purposely did that. So let me just see. We're talking about it, driving innovation from within. We're talking about entrepreneurship. We have business owners in this room and also CXOs, like business leaders. Right? And those who are HR heads, the other day, one of the gentlemen called me, very senior HR person. He said, "You've written CXOs. I lead HR. Am I allowed to come?" I said, to me, CXOs being CHROs. You can't, if you're a head of HR, you are a CXO. Right? I think that mindset is still there in HR head that I'm not a CXO. Whatever your title is, the CXOs means CHROs as well. So owners, people who run business, owners, as I said, people who are business owners like directors, chairmen, owners of businesses. With a raise of hand, I don't know whether it's diplomatically, politically correct, but I'll still ask this question. Because I ask all kind of questions to people. How many of you in this room as owners have created entrepreneurs or created a culture of entrepreneurship in your organization? Raise of hands. Well, I don't see any hand going up, or maybe 1 or 2 half hand going up. Okay, something like that. Okay, right? And this is to business leaders, people who are CXOs, so to say, in this room. In your organization, wherever you work, you think there's a culture which really drives entrepreneurship? Raise of hand. The culture that drives entrepreneurship. Only 3-4 hands going up. Well, I'm so glad to be in the right subject really today, right? So here is, gentlemen and ladies, the gurus of today, and let me just get there. I mean, I don't remember all their biodatas, so I need to get my cue cards really. So here is it today. The format of the session is going to be, we have 4 speakers, all of them are absolutely gurus, and once I give you some information about them, you'll know. So we're going to have speaker one by one give their perspectives, anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes each, or maybe some people say that I'm okay, I'll be done in 20 minutes. That's fine, it's their choice, how much time we have about 2 hours for 4 presenters. So if Kaihan takes longer, Ankit says I'm going to do a little faster and so on and so forth. So the 4 gurus that we have today are Kaihan Krippendorff, who's the CEO of a company called Outthinkers Network. He's ex-McKinsey consultant, worked on strategy, outthinking for decades, 2.5 decades at least. He teaches in business schools. He runs this beautiful collaborative effort called Outthinkers Network, which is actually a network of strategy, innovation leaders across organizations. It's still in the United States, so you've not got to other continents yet. We're getting to India soon. Yeah. Okay. His profile very quickly. He's recognized by Global Gurus and Thinkers 50 as one of the top world's business thinkers in strategy and innovation, and also plays active role in corporate advisory boards. He's a doctorate in strategy and obviously various degrees in finance, business from University of Pennsylvania, Wharton, Columbia, and London Business School. I mean, I wonder which school you left out. That's Indian joke, Indian humor. We were just on the way from his hotel. We were talking about the humor in US, humor in Britain, and humor in India. So I said, okay, you're here for 10 days. We'll get you some taste of Indian humor for sure. Right? As much as we'll get him a taste of Indian food, but some Indian humor as well. His work, because he's a strategy guru, his work has generated billions of dollars, mind you guys, billions of dollars in new annual revenue. It's not about just efficiency, new annual revenue for companies like Athena, JP Morgan, Lockheed Martin, Procter & Gamble, L'Oreal, IBM, Microsoft, Yahoo, and so on and so forth. He's a writer, and you'll see some of his books. He's got 5 books to his credit. My favorite, because that's what I've read, practiced for years now, is Outthinking the Competition, which is the session we have tomorrow, driving innovation from within. Right? His next book, which is coming, called Proximity, is about breakthroughs and transformation in business and society and life. Very interesting book, which is yet to come, though. He teaches in various business schools. He hosts Outthinker podcast and contributes regularly to major media outlets. He has facilitated conversations with corporate leaders and EU entrepreneurs at the United Nations to make a world leader. One, politically it may not be correct because we have some turmoil in the neighboring nation, but regardless of that, the new Bangladesh premier, Mohammed Yunus, who is actually, forget the politics side, but he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He made a comment in Kaihan many years ago. He said, Kaihan shows that what a compelling idea anyone can change. With a compelling idea, anyone can change the world. Paul, welcome very much. There's Kaihan. Kaihan, if you can just wave to the people. There's Kaihan Krippendorff, gentlemen and ladies. Our next speaker for today morning is Ravi Arora. I know you might be feeling it's Arora, but yeah, maybe it might be related in about a few centuries back. I don't know about post that. He's IIT Roorkee and XLRI pass out. Right? Very interesting. Ravi Arora heads innovation for Tata Group, Tata Sons, the flagship company of Tata Group, Tata Sons. And once you hear from him, I always say that I think probably Tata Group has contributed to more entrepreneurs in the world than anybody else has. I know when I used to work for a tech company many years back, about 15, 20 years back, every time you meet anybody who's started a tech company, a software company, would say, I'm an ex-TCS. So I think TCS itself would have contributed maybe 1,000, 10, I don't know how many, 2,000, 5,000 entrepreneurs in this country or more. I don't know if he has the number himself. I don't think anybody has the number. It's crazy, absolutely. At least about 15, 20 years back, half the Bangalore tech companies were all ex-TCS employees. Right? He's the author of 2 books, Making Innovation Happen and Igniting Innovation the Tata Way. Right? He's going to talk about how Tata Group has really created the entrepreneurship or innovation culture. Some very, very interesting anecdotes and examples, and all we can learn from. Right? Sometimes you wonder that Tata Group is too big, but I think learning can happen from anywhere. Right? He nurtures innovation culture by embedding crowdsourcing, open innovation, reward recognition, capability building with organizations, and obviously academic excellence. He has created programs, and we will get to hear from him, Tata InnoMeter, Tata InnoVista, Tata Innoverse, and challenges worth solving to build better innovation ecosystem in the company. He has worked on various award-winning innovation, knowledge management programs, which are popular in international forums and also a lot of B schools. He worked with several B schools like IIM Ahmedabad, INSEAD, Singapore, SMU, LBS, LSE for research projects and at the intersection of innovation and behavioral science. Well, welcome, Ravi. It's so nice to see you. And a quick wave of hand, guys. We'll get to hear him soon. Our third speaker, I mean, it's just a sequence, it's not really third or fourth, but third speaker for today morning is Rajiv Narang, who's known to be the innovation guru in the country. He is founder and MD of Erehwon Consulting. Now imagine reading Erehwon, is Erehwon, it's not H. He corrected me, H is silent, and therefore we had our morning jokes. It's Erehwon Consulting. If you read Erehwon other way around, is now here. Yeah, did I read it right? No, I don't want to say that. Okay, right. He's recognized, as I said, recognized as an innovation thought leader. Over the last 3 decades, 30 or 34 years actually, he's been leading innovation or helping companies across the country. Now actually even abroad, he set up a new franchise partner company in China recently. He's a council member of Innovation for India Foundation, co-chairperson of FICCI Innovation Committee. Rajiv was part of National Planning Commission panel to recommend India's innovation strategy. He leads diverse and rich portfolio of strategic innovation, and he's helped organizations, just to name a few, like Bank of America, Max New York Life, Novartis, Unilever, IFF, Infosys, Wipro, ESPN, and so on and so forth. All right. He partnered in architecturing Marico's Innovation for India Foundation and Innovation for India Awards. Right. He pioneered the Challenger, the Insight project that finally culminated in Erehwon's first book, which says Making Breakthrough Innovation Happen, and how 11 Indians did the impossible. And I'm sure we'll get to hear more about him. Now, as you see, the first 3 speakers that I talked about, we put their books right below because all of them have not one, but have multiple books. Right? Then we are wondering when we get Ankit Mehta, the 4th speaker, he doesn't have a book. I said, okay, what do we do with him? Right, last night we were debating. Okay, then we debated. So, wow, Ankit Mehta has his company, he and his company has 70 plus patents. Said, look at that. Every patent is a book. So we put patents. So Ankit Mehta, gents and ladies, for you, he's like it happens in a lot of young startup. He's a IIT Bombay alumni, double graduate, MTech, BTech in mechanical engineering, CAD and automation from IIT Bombay. He's, how many of you know IdeaForge? Invested in IdeaForge? Anybody? Yeah, okay. Some people would have, I'm sure. He's a pioneer and leader in drone manufacturing. I mean, we all have this charm for drones. We all love to see that, but we only see that in the marriages and functions. We see drone flying, and anybody who doesn't want to own a drone in this room, everybody wants to own a drone, right? It's such a sexy thing. You want to have a drone fly it around. Oh man! But unfortunately, you can't do that in India yet. I hope you're changing the game soon. So, drone manufacturing, co-chair of FICCI Committee on Drones, Ankit's neutral policy suggestions contributes positively to the industry and its growth. He actively shapes UAV, which I looked up internet, what UAV stands for, unmanned aerial vehicles, right? Regulations and policy in India through his involvement in various drone-related companies. Ankit, under his leadership, IdeaForge has earned the distinction of being ranked the 5th largest drone company in the world. Fabulous, absolutely. This is although Modi ji started with Made in India only 10 years back, but I think this is a real story of Made in India. I mean, India's largest drone company, world's 5th largest, absolutely fabulous. IdeaForge has been well recognized by Marico Innovation Foundation, CNBC TV 18, Dun & Bradstreet, ET 40 under 40, Government of India for creating intellectual property and indigenous technology products. He also won Young Alumni Achiever Award from IIT Bombay to all the IIT co-founders of IdeaForge. He's a technologist at heart, co-inventor of several patents. I already talked about 70 plus. Some are still to get the patents, but most of it is already through. So that's Ankit Mehta for you guys. So the way, as I said, the format is they're going to invite Kaihan to give his keynote, talk about innovation, give us perspective on what he's been doing, seeing around the world, how companies have built innovation. Ravi will talk about, because he leads Tata, I mean, he of course does a lot of other things, but we want to hear Tata's story, how Tata has really built innovative culture, created thousands of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs as well, right? Rajiv has been consulting for the last 3 decades or more and worked with all kinds of companies around the country and the world, gave a very interesting perspective of how he has helped companies enable innovation in those companies. Ankit, a tech at heart, how he's built IdeaForge as an absolutely gorgeous, innovative company, and how he and his team, because in a company which has 70 patents, it can't be just one person doing it all. Right? Obviously, you build a team which is really leading this company. So from Ankit, we'll hear about how he's really built the innovation culture at IdeaForge. So let me invite Kaihan Krippendorff. Right, the mic for you. Yes, here you go, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a thrill to be here. It's been about 15 years since I've been in India. I used to come fairly frequently. My mother is Bangladeshi, and she lived in Bangladesh, and I would come and do some talks and then go see her there. She now lives in Florida, where I live, with my wife and 3 children. My mission in life is people loving what they do. And there is a problem with the way that we talk about innovation that I think suppresses our willingness to do what we love to do. Because when we talk about innovators, we talk about founders. We talk about CEOs. We usually talk about young people who come up with ideas, often at a young age, often they're technologists, and then they usually go to some technology hub, and they go into a little garage with a small team. You've got a hipster, you have a hacker, you have a hustler. They all are men, by the way, right? So we propagate this idea that it's a young entrepreneur man who puts a small team together, quits their job, and then goes into the garage, builds this thing, and then disrupts the big old, the Tatas, the incumbents, right? That's the story that we like to tell. And I used to believe that. I would run ideation workshops, hundreds of them for lots of companies. And honestly, as I would run these ideation workshops, I always thought, these aren't the right people. We don't have the right people in the room, right? This is a big established company. They've got the bureaucracy, the culture. They're not going to innovate. But then I met Jean, and she doesn't look like an entrepreneur, right? She doesn't look like an innovator. But she has introduced several model transforming innovations inside her field of publishing. And at a workshop, which will be similar to what we do tomorrow, she came up with this idea. She called it Romance 2.0. And what the issue was that her publisher, she's one of the 4 largest publishers in the world, Macmillan, and they were worried about self-published authors who would publish their book, who couldn't get a book publishing contract. They would self-publish, they were successful, and then traditional publishers would go to them and say, hey, congratulations, we'd like to publish your next book. But she was starting to hear people say, I don't know if I need a traditional publisher because I can put a PDF online and I can sell it and I can keep all the revenue for myself. And if you think that through, if this continues, then the publishing industry is dead. This is a fatal threat to their business model. So she came up with this idea in a small group, and it became this thing, and then I forgot about it. For like 5 years, I forgot about it, and I just thought it was going to go the way internal innovations always go. We get some excitement, then we put it on the back burner until an entrepreneur does them. But then I heard something on the radio, and I realized she had actually done it. So I won't go into what it is. Tomorrow we'll go into how she came up with it and what the model is. But let's just say it was proved disruptive in their space, and it protected them against what could have been this fatal threat. It's kind of a platform for would-be self-published authors. So I went to her office. I lived in New York at the time. I now live in Miami. And I went to her office in the Flatiron Building, and I asked her, I want to understand, is she the anomaly? And how could we create more people like her? But it got me questioning, is she really an anomaly? So I looked at a list of the 30 most transformative innovations over the last 30 years. This isn't my list. This is a list compiled by a panel of professors from Wharton Business School based off of thousands of submissions. And these are the big innovations. This is the internet. This is email. This is DNA sequencing. And I said, well, we go back, who conceived of the idea, who developed the idea, and who scaled the idea? Lots we could draw from this, but let's just focus in on this left-hand side. The orange-red color over here represents ideas that were primarily scaled by employees, And this, you'll notice, is 30%. 30% of the ideas are ideas that are actually scaled by entrepreneurs. So I'm going to disagree a little bit with what she said here today. It's not that now we need employee innovators and we have to learn how to do this. It's not that you need to learn the entrepreneurial way. You don't have to learn how entrepreneurs build. What I'm arguing is that actually, historically, employees are the primary drivers of innovation in society, and they have always been so. And the only reason we don't know that to be true is because we like to tell stories of entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurs. Many of you are entrepreneurs. That's awesome. But what I'm going to say is if you are the CEO, your next big idea is not going to come from you. It's going to come from your employees and your ability to enable them to see and seize opportunities. If it were not for employee innovators, you would not have the internet. You would not have a mobile phone. If you had those two, you couldn't send an email. If you got sick, you couldn't get an MRI. You couldn't get a stent. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying here? Is that the world that we have built on the passion and the creativity of employees. Not founders, not CEOs. Yeah? So I want to understand, what do we do to unlock more employee innovation? Because unlocking employee innovation drives for financial performance. There's a measure of entrepreneurial intensity, and it's a function of two different things. With what frequency do your people act entrepreneurially, and what's the degree of that action? Is it innovative, risk-taking, proactive? And so I'd like you to just put yourself mentally on this map over here. Would you say that you're high, medium, or low in the frequency with which people in your organizations take entrepreneurial action? And is that entrepreneurial action high, medium, or low? And we can actually prove that if you can move to the left, move to the right, or move up towards the top right, you will increase the value of your company. So picture where you are now. Let's say an accumulator is maybe like a BMW. They come up with lots and lots of innovations, but they're kind of incremental innovations. They build their advantage by building on incremental innovations. Over here, you kind of have the transformation company, the company that operates their business model for 5 or 10 years, and then they transform, right? So they do it infrequently, but they're big transformations. And then if you just move one spot to the right, one spot to the left, that difference represents the value that your company would increase by. This also shows that you're better at recruiting and retaining top talent, and it improves overall financial performance over a multi-year period. So it's worth it. That's my point. It's worth it. It's always been true. It's worth it. And actually, we know a lot about it. The thing is that we don't approach this challenge with the right mode. I looked at 367 companies that appeared on the most innovative lists. There are two different most innovative lists, very US-centric. I looked at, because I looked at publicly traded companies for which there's financial data, and I said, of these, the only way an innovation program is effective is if innovation has to be new, it has to be adopted, it has to be valuable. And if that's true, then you should outperform financially. So I just took these different measures of financial performance. I said, let's say that we can only say the innovation program, I mean, all of these people get celebrated, they're on the list, but their innovations don't actually produce value unless they outperform the competition. At least 2 of them, only 13 of them outperform. And if we look at their approaches to innovation, almost all of them, with the exception of the pharmaceutical ones, they adopt this people-driven innovation. This is Steve Jobs. He said, innovation comes from people meeting up in hallways, or calling each other at 10:30 at night with an idea, or because they realize something that shoots holes in how we've been thinking about problems. Everybody passionately looking for ways to break through the problems that help the company succeed. Like, imagine what that would look like. A way to look at and think about this is that there are 4 different forms of innovation. Where does the money come from? Is there a dedicated fund? Like, if you tell your company, I have this much money set aside, we're going to do idea competitions, and I'm going to fund it if you have an idea. Or ad hoc, which is someone comes up with an idea and they have to go find the funding themselves. They have to convince your salespeople or your commercial side to fund it. And do we have a few people innovate? We have the innovation team that's dedicated, or does everybody innovate? And what I'm proposing is that the most successful model right now is this one, diffused ad hoc. Everyone innovating, and they have to go find the money to pursue the innovations. That's what we need. You want to take a picture? Go ahead. This is from Rob Wolcott. He's the co-author of my new book, which has been published, Proximity. But we make it so hard, right? You talk to internal innovators. I run this peer network of chief strategy officers and chief innovation officers. They're smart, they're humble, they're curious, they run M&A, they run innovation, and they're frustrated. They hear this frustration. There's not enough time to do it. The resources, it's short-term thinking, there's culture, there's bureaucracy, there's priorities that are inconsistent, there's sluggishness. The metrics don't encourage innovative activities. The incentives aren't aligned with innovative activity. We operate in these silos. I can't break out of the silos. They tell me, wait, we tried that before. And if they say that we haven't tried it before, they said, no, nobody's done that before. Do you see like the inconsistency with that? They say, oh, prove it before we'll give you the funding, but you can't prove it because no one's done it before. We don't have the time. We'll do it next quarter. We'll do it next quarter. What about the regulations? This technically is not allowed to be done and technically not feasible, right? So all of these things. So I went and I spent 5 years interviewing 150 internal innovators and asking them, what are your challenges? And how do you overcome those challenges? So what I thought I would just share with you is very briefly the 7 challenges that internal innovators cite most frequently. So picture 150 interviews in Excel with like a bunch of rows, and I just picked the 7 that are most frequently mentioned. Now, I believe all models are wrong. Some are useful. I forced this to spell innovate. It's missing an N. It's not magic. It just helps us remember and helps our internal innovators kind of remember where they are in the journey. Intent is your people have stopped trying because they've been told no so many times they've lost intent. If you activate that, the next thing is that they don't understand what your company needs because they don't understand your strategy. Less than 30% of mid-level managers can name even 2 of their company's top strategic priorities. So you ask them to innovate, but they're innovating on things that aren't strategically important, right? If we fix that, they don't generate enough options. We need lots and lots of options. That's what tomorrow is going to be about, generating lots and lots. They need a portfolio of 40 and 50 ideas, and yet they have that one idea that they keep trying to push for and push for and push for, and when they hit a wall, they can't turn around because they don't have another idea on their list, right? We need more ideas. Value blockers, it's really business model conflict, but that doesn't spell innovate, so I changed it to value blockers. So it's about them understanding how to manage the business model and redesign the business model around their idea so that it reduces the internal conflict with your current business model. Then act. We ask them to prove the idea in order to do the idea, but you have to do the idea in order to prove the idea because the data doesn't yet exist, right? The next thing is team. They can't pull together the team because they need to work with finance, with marketing, with operations, and with accounting, and all those people report to different people, so unless they have the ear of the CEO, which maybe is you, they can't pull the team together. So usually what you see is these innovations that are successful, they create an informal ground well of support around the idea. They do it and they don't even ask you permission. And other people do it not because they're getting time or money, they're just passionate about the idea. And then finally, there's a whole bundle that we call environment, which is leadership, which is culture, organizational structures, things like that. So I'm going to very briefly just go through each of these. Yeah. Sound good? Great. Intent is really interesting. I thought that if people lost intent, they'd stop looking for ideas, but actually it's worse than that. They stop even seeing ideas. There's a really interesting study by a professor in the UK. He gave 2 different groups of people the same job. So people who identified themselves as lucky, and people who didn't identify themselves as lucky. And he said, look through this newspaper and count the number of photos in the newspaper. The lucky people typically figured it out within seconds, while the unlucky people average took 6 minutes. You know why? Because on the second page of the newspaper, there was an advertisement, but it was a print advertisement, and it said, there are 63 photos in this newspaper, you can stop searching. And the unlucky people, they're like, I'm not going to see anything that is going to be new, that's going to open up a possibility for me. They're the kind of people who I'm not going to go meet the person that's going to change my life. I'm not going to meet the love of my life today. I'm not going to find money on the floor, right? But lucky people are looking. So the first thing is to recognize that when we've lost intent, and there's 3 reasons why people have lost intent. Either they think they're not capable, or they think it's not possible, or they think that the social reaction to their action is going to be undesirable. What would my mom say? What will my coworker say? You know? Now you've unlocked intent. The next is need. Beautiful things happen when people really understand what the world needs, what the market needs, but also what the company needs. The issue is that internal innovators have 2 customers. You have the customer in the market, but also the employer is the customer too. So when your employer says no, what successful internal innovators do is they take that as customer feedback, right? Like if you made a drone and nobody wanted the drone, you would just say, these people don't understand drones. I'm going to go make pens instead, right? You go and try to understand why the customer rejected the idea and then refine the idea in order to find that sweet spot, right? I'm not going to tell this story because I want to make sure we have enough time. So when these innovations take hold, it's usually at the overlap of these 3 things. They understand a market need. These are people who go to conferences, they read the trade journals, they talk to competition, they're out in the market, they talk to customers. They have a certain passion and they're allowed to bring that passion to work because this is going to be a long slog. They're going to be told no a lot of times. It has to be something that they're passionate about to persist in pursuing, and they have to understand what the organization needs. You know? Next is options. We think we have too many options, but actually we have too few options. We need to increase our option kill rate in order to get more options in the funnel. The average success rate of an internal innovation is about 15%. If you do the math, if we want to introduce 4 successful innovations each year, we need to launch 25, we need to pilot 170, we need to test 1,000. And I don't believe innovation is just about product. I think innovation is about every dimension of your business model, which also means that everyone in your business is an innovator. We should be looking for branding options, product options, new pricing options, new channels to explore, new promotion strategies to reduce customer acquisition costs, new physical experiences or innovations in the physical experience, processes and operations, people, how we recruit, how we hire, how we retain, what our culture is, and our purpose, and exploring ways to find innovations across all of these. Again, all models are wrong. This is 9 Ps, just to make it easy for us to remember. It's like a good checklist. So how do we come up with options? The way the great chess players see the winning move, the way that people see options is not through logic, but rather through patterns. They take something in another domain, they abstract it, and then they apply it to your industry, and and that reveals new options. So I feel like I'm gonna skip the next couple slides, okay? The key is to introduce more patterns. Master chess players see the winning move because they recognize twice as many patterns as experts, and grandmasters recognize 10 times as many. Tomorrow we're going to go through 36 different patterns, and we're going to focus on 5 of them. I'm just going to describe one of them, but this is kind of the universal frame for innovation, which is play for tomorrow rather than today. I graduated from school with Elon Musk, and I used that to get an interview with him way back when. I couldn't get to him now. But he had just bought SpaceX. He had just launched SpaceX. And so I asked him, why did you launch SpaceX? He said, I just think a future in which anyone can shoot stuff into space is more exciting than one in which only the government can. And what he's practicing here is mental time travel. This is a view of one pattern, which is step into the future. Take elements of the future that people are looking at as separate things and put it together as one thing. I'll give one quick example of this. If you take skis from a ski scene, take handlebars off of a bicycle, and take the treads off of a tank, and you put them together, if you see a snowmobile, you now have taken things that everyone is talking about. What is AI? have to do with deglobalization, have to do with cultural transformation or something, right? And you can see the bigger picture. And I'm going to propose one future picture to think about is proximity, which is the topic of my most recent book. Across every industry, what we see is that the value is getting created closer and closer to the point in which it's needed. Drones help with this. The soda, the syrup in this machine gets mixed only after people press the button and say that I want a cherry diet vanilla Coke. How can they economically deliver that exact precise thing? They don't wait until there's an order. And so what we see is value gets created closer and closer to. 3D printing allows us to create things closer to when and where it's needed. Drone lift capacity is accelerating, allowing us to move things closer. I mean, when we can lift a container with 4 drones, what's going to happen to ports, right? Food is getting moved closer to with controlled environment farming. This is a Miele product where they, you kind of, it's a refrigerator-sized thing where you can grow your food at home. So across all dimensions, that's what we see. So we want to introduce these patterns that allow people to see different options. And if you join us tomorrow, we'll go through specifically how to do that. Okay, next, they come up with the idea they're going to face a value blocker, and they're going to complain about corporate antibodies. These things that emerge around the idea that kill off any new idea. And this whole theory of disruptive innovation, which Clayton Christensen coined, I think is misunderstood. It's understood to be a law, but all he's doing is pointing out a phenomenon that the decision-making and resource allocation processes that are key to the success of established companies are the processes that reject disruptive technologies. But there are ways around that. One way, which we'll talk at the end, is to change how we operate. But another way is to train our people in business model design. Xbox, created by Microsoft, should have failed. Here's a product that is a physical product. Company has never made physical products before. It requires a cool brand. Microsoft is not a cool brand. And what they realized was they went through the business model and they realized that instead of trying to create a PlayStation killer, was their original concept, instead what they should do is create the first console for game developers, because game developers are the primary customer. So we can really improve the success rate of innovations if we train people to move them closer here. So this is the intended market entirely new, or is it the same? Is the product or technology new or the same? Failure rate for a new is about 75 to 95%. What Microsoft did was it took this thing and it moved it here through business model design. So that's another thing that we want people to learn is business model design. Taking action on the idea. Usually we ask people to prove it to do it, as I said. We adopt a prove, plan, execute approach. Give me a plan, financial projection, and I'll give you funding. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an innovator, you know that the data doesn't yet exist, right? You give me a financial projection of how a customer is going to react to this product or service, what the acceptance rate is going to be. You don't know. You just plug in a number that gives you the NPV that you want. You actually have to create an MVP or something and put it out there. You need to take an act, learn, build approach. People think this is new. People think that this is technology. This isn't new. This is old. Apple's been doing this from way back when it took the technology from Xerox to create the computer mouse. That technology was based off of lasers, which would have made for a product that was too expensive to be a consumer product. So they said, what would have to be true for us to be able to make this mouse work? Well, the technology, yeah, that has to work. We have to get apps developers to develop software that would use it. But none of that would matter if people rejected the feel of a ball, right? What's it called? A trackball. So what did? They went to the pharmacy. They bought a stick of roller deodorant. They put it in a box, and then they brought people in and just had them move it around just to see how they would react to this model, right? These inexpensive, frugal experiments and taking the creativity to figure out what are the things that would be inexpensive to try. This is the first digital calculator developed by HP. Before they launched it, they hired a marketing firm to figure out what the market potential of this is. And you know what the market firm determined? There's no market for this because you're competing against an entrenched competitor with a far lower price point. Why would anyone spend this much money when you have this? What did they do instead? They didn't try to predict it. They took action. They made 100 of them, 1,000 of them, and before long they're selling 1,000 a day. So it's this mindset shift of taking action. A lot of our members like this model. Michael Schraga, 5 people, $5,000, 5 weeks, 1 or 2 days a week, run an experiment, and then come back, see what we learn, and then we can do more if we want to. You know? There are lots of ways, and we're going to learn today other ways to do it. But we want to learn how to make experiments. Next one, team. What Jean did when she had her idea, she sent an email out. She didn't ask her boss for permission. She just sent an email and said, I've got this idea. It kind of works like this. If you're interested in it, let's meet next Thursday, and I'll bring pizza. She told me that if 7 people showed up, she was going to pursue the idea. If not, she wasn't going to. Now, this is very smart. Your employer, your organization is a customer. Even if the market wants this idea, if you can't get resonance, you can't get buy-in internally, you're not the company to build it. So she sent it out, 30 people showed up. So she knew that there was potential here, and she pulled together this team. They worked informally, mostly nights and weekends, met once a week. You got to let people, and we got to pursue activating this informal teams around us. And the final one that I'm going to cover is environment. Most innovators are rejected. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking creativity. The gentleman that created the radio, he was told by his company, the wireless music box has no imaginal commercial value. Who would pay for a message sent to nobody in particular? They were a telegraph company, and so they didn't make sense. Why would you if you don't know who's receiving it, what message you sent, right? You know, the Steve Wozniak, he proposed the technology that became the Apple computer 5 times as an employee at HP, and he was rejected all 5 times. So what we want to get our people to appreciate is this rejection is just part of the journey, that the political challenge is part of the problem-solving process. So we can help them do that, and we can also make it easier for them to do that. And we're not making up the wheel. Look, I looked at every study that I could find that showed a statistically significant correlation with some organizational factor and higher or lower levels of internal innovation. We know all this already. It's just we're not looking at the research. This is all it is. Structure. You need the right structures with the right leadership, the right culture, the right talent. All of these depend on each other. We need to provide innovation resources, create rewards. We need to allow for risk-taking and allow for organizational freedom. And there are 4 characteristics of culture that tend to correlate with. Does your culture, I'll let you think about this, do we have cultural values that encourage innovative thinking, autonomy and proactivity? Do you have a kind of company where people have to ask permission first? That's a problem. Market awareness, do we encourage people to get out in the market and talk to customers? And risk-taking, do we encourage and celebrate risk-taking? You know? So we can give you a copy of this so you can look through this. But my point is, answers really already know. And what we're starting to see is companies are solving these problems and they're evolving. Companies are still run like centrally planned economies. There are 5 ways humans organize themselves: hierarchies or bureaucracies, marketplaces, democracies, communities, or ecosystems. In our current organizational framework, we tend to lean towards hierarchies and bureaucracies. We operate our businesses like centrally planned economies. And as Ashish said, the world is changing really fast. Hierarchies break down. If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of the change on the inside, the end is near. But there are really exciting, innovative business models. I was just in China last week, and I saw a number of companies adopting this model. Hire is a company. They are they're an appliance company in China. 5 years ago, they bought GE appliances they had $5 billion in revenue. Today, they have $31 billion in revenue. Almost all of that organic growth. If you ask them how they did it, here's what they did. Simple. They take their hierarchy, they break their hierarchy down into micro enterprises. Take your company and break it down to teams of 10 people. They're intact teams. You've got an HR person in each of those teams, right? They each have their own profit and loss. Then take your HR department, I'm picking on HR, but take your finance department, take your IT department, and turn them into micro enterprises and make them sell their services inside. Don't give them budget. If they can't get people to pay for their marketing services or their IT services, then you know what? That effectively is a marketplace that reduces their budget. We did a study 2 years ago, or over the last 2 years, and we can prove that there is a statistically significant correlation between 4 elements of this model. 1, if your employees feel like entrepreneurs rather than employees, you've got a 6-to-1 advantage in your ability to recruit and retain top talent, a 3-to-1 advantage in your financial performance over 3 years. If you can turn business units into micro enterprises, if you can manage those enterprises through decentralized marketplace models rather than centralized authority and designated shared services, if you can loosen that up. It's like, I mean, if you were running a race and someone said, if you wear this hat, you're going to win the race, and you would wear that hat. We know what the hat is. We just have to put the hat on. And as we put the hat on, as we do these 7 things, I think we're going to be headed to a really exciting future. I think that intent, we're going to stop treating employees like employees, and they're going to free them up to be entrepreneurs. Need, we're going to get rid of complex strategic plans that no one can understand and align on simple statements of purpose. We're going to, options are not going to come from boardrooms and from management, but from hallways and maybe Zoom meetings now, right? Value blockers, we're going to evolve from one business model to multiple business model, an ecosystem of business model. We're going to stop asking for business plans and let people experiment. We're going to break down hierarchies into smaller, agile teams, and ultimately, the organization evolves from a centralized economy into a platform where employees are free and liberated to find opportunities and rally the resources to prove those opportunities. And I personally think, like, this is a place where people will love what they do, right? And it's actually, we're not reinventing the wheel. We know a lot of this, and we can do that. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm sure this last 35, 40 minutes have kept you thinking, right? That, oh boy, where am I? Where are we? What are we doing in our company? Absolutely brilliant models, right? I love particularly, if I just go back to this slide, just 1 second, not that I want to, this one, where you talked about some of those. Yes, this is absolutely. The structure, talent, leadership, and culture. That says it all. Brilliant. I'm not going to steal the thunder. We will have questions and summary in the end, but I'm going to quickly move to the next. Invite Ravi. Ravi, I'll just get your presentation up. Okay. We are not doing any formal breaks, guys, in between. Anybody wants to, tea, coffee outside, please feel free to do that. Here we go. And interestingly, I must share that with you that almost every speaker that was coming up here, while they are describing, if any of you need the presentation, they have a abridged version PDF. I'll be happy to send to you, whoever wants it later on. Some data, of course, are confidential, but something without data, I'll be happy to send to you. Mike? I will use this one.
Good morning. I looked at the hall now.
Okay,
pretty large gathering. Good morning. I thought the hall is only this much. All right, good. Thank you. Happy to be here. Pleasure, privilege to be speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, as you said, from small, medium, large companies. I'm here to share the story very briefly about what we are trying to do on innovation, the subject of innovation in Tata Group companies. We work with companies, Tata companies across sectors and across sizes. So I'm sure you will find something which is relatable, useful, and might ignite or might provoke you to think something different. I have a few slides in the beginning for people like Kaihan who may not know about the Tata Group. Some of you may know, but a quick snapshot of what Tata Group is. We are about 1 million employees across the group, 30 companies listed, multiple sectors. We are the largest or the second largest in many companies. You don't have to take pictures. These slides will come to you if you send a message to Mr. Arora. But in case you want to take pictures, please feel free. But please don't take pictures on some slides where I have some data. That's my request. Although this also has data, but you can take pictures. So this gives you a snapshot. We are so I don't want to go into details, but you must have read it. So big, bold, and pioneering. Now this big 1 million employees, sectors, $165 million in revenue doesn't happen if the group is not big, bold, and pioneering. It's obvious. But let me share a few stories of more than 100 years old. The Tata Group actually started with Empress Mills in 1874. The hotel, Taj Hotel, which I'm sure all of you know, including Kaihan here, is started in 1903. Tata Steel, where I started my career with in Jamshedpur, was 1907, and Tata Power in 1910. These are all entrepreneurship activities. And I believe that in a successful in a company, innovation is definitely happening. It sometimes may not be visible within or to the outside world, but if the company is growing continuously, making progress, innovation is definitely somewhere inside. Either the owner is owning it or it is hidden inside the DNA. So that's the next point that I wanted to make. I don't know how many of you know that Tata started 8-hour working globally. 8-hour working was started by Tatas. Provident Fund was started by Tatas. Gratuity was started by Tatas. Creche for children started by Tatas. Paid leaves were started by Tatas. And that too all 100 years ago. These are all social innovations that we all enjoy. We take it for granted these days. You know open innovation? Have you heard of this subject called open innovation? Henry Chesbrough is known to be the father of open innovation, but actually our founder, I wanted to give you an example today that he practiced open innovation in 1889. He found Arora mines, which are iron ore mines in central India, and he found Lohara mines. Lohara is, as you know, iron ore, and Arora is coal. Sorry, I mistook. Lohara is iron ore and Arora is coal. Now, I don't want to go into details of metallurgy, but the Arora coal was not fit for use to make steel for using the ore which comes out from the Lohara mines. He was struggling. He took samples of those iron ore and the coal mines to England in 1889 and gave it to some scientists to do some experiments, to give him solutions as to how the coal can be used to make steel. They could not give it. He came back and he did what today is open innovation, which means he published this problem statement in journals of 1889. That anybody who can solve this problem will be awarded this much of cash. 1889. He got multiple solutions. None of them worked, but he kept his promise. He gave the award to the best ideas he received, and it was shared amongst a few people at that time. So that's open innovation. So the point that I'm making is when the companies grow, the DNA which is there amongst the founders and maybe his or her close team needs to spread, needs to become more formal in nature. And we, at least, this is a picture from my first book, so it's fine. So I believe that the journey to innovation doesn't happen so often because of fear. Multiple fears that come across in the minds of people. And these fears could be of different degrees depending upon the country, the culture, the norms, and stuff like that. How many of you we all enjoy definitely generating ideas, but how many of you are fearful of sharing ideas inside your companies? I think almost every hand will go up, including mine, for sure. We are definitely, you can say fear, or you can say apprehensive, hesitation they are similar words when it comes to sharing ideas. When it comes to sharing ideas in the conference room, in a boardroom, we are even more hesitant. If we, but if you, I don't know if you have a dinner and a drink tonight, but we enjoy a lot when we are amongst the friends over a drink. We are it's fun to share ideas. So if we find a solution which overcomes the fear of sharing ideas, the next fear is of selecting the ideas. And I'll give you some examples later in my presentation. And we have seen it. I think I'll refer to your grid, no, not really your grid, but if you draw a 2x2 matrix of the idea which is uncertain on the x-axis, and on the y-axis is about impact or benefits or whatever you call it, the person who has the authority to select an idea and fund an idea typically would hesitate to select an idea which has a long horizon and has uncertainty in it. Nobody wants a monkey on the back, in simple words. Nobody wants. And the way the organizations are structured, the person who selects or rejects an idea is not accountable, he doesn't need to explain why he rejected the idea. We don't have those strong processes in place. So the fear of selecting an innovative idea exists, but but the other way, which means the selecting ideas which are not really uncertain and innovative is easy. So that's why everybody improves, but only few make innovations. The third is, the next fear is the executing ideas, because I would say it's more of it's fear or a hesitation. Everybody is under pressure, quarter to quarter pressure, annual pressure, people looking for, so in some sense the patient capital is lacking. The capital which needs patience lacks in most organizations. People want in FY25, that's it. And most ideas, innovative ideas, other than a few which are pure digital in nature, are typically multi-year ideas, typical. So therefore it's more of a issue on investing ideas, and then there is a large fear when it comes to monetizing it, because people are very scared of cannibalizing a fantastic product which is doing good in the market, in case you want to substitute with a much better product, which I think Kaihan gave you examples of calculator and stuff like that. So what we believe is, if you want to, and this comes from your Kaihan's 2x2 metric of diffused distributed dollars, is what I know, lower bottom. So we believe in that actually, in Tata Group. We feel that and how do we create the culture of innovation, which, as I mentioned earlier, I gave you examples of Tata Group founders, who exhibited a lot of culture for innovation. Now, if you want to spread it across to 1 million employees, what do? We believe that if you have to put nothing but processes which are followed for many years. Processes which are followed for many years becomes a culture. That's what we believe. And to ensure that the processes are followed for years without policing, without putting pressure, you need to do 4 things. The process should be simple, enjoyable, rewarding, and should be a source of social capital in a mid to long term. That's what we believe in, and that's how we are creating processes which are engaging people, which are involving more people on incremental innovations and once in a while disruptive ideas. So I'm going to give you an example of 3 programs that we are running out of maybe 6 or 7 programs that we have. Tata Innovista, Tata eHack, and Tata Innovers. I'll quickly jump to these programs, a few slides each on these programs. Tata Innovista details are there in this book that was shown. The whole book is dedicated to Tata Innovista as a program. But this program, in simple words, asks our teams and people to come forward and share and nominate things they are proud of and things or projects that they feel are innovation or have resulted in innovations. 2 things they're proud of and they feel it has resulted in innovations. And to make it easier, we have created 6 categories of these. And in different years, you can see the journey, 2006 to all the way to 2020. There are a few more which I have not shown here. Implemented innovations. Now, this category is very big. Now, if you remember 9 Ps of yours, Kaihan, they are all fitted here. They are all subcategories. Implemented innovations are innovations which have been completed in the last 12 to 18 months' time. It could be process innovations, branding innovations, it could be business model innovations, support process innovations, core process innovations, digital innovations, and so on and so forth. We have some 8 to 10 subcategories. Then we have Dare to Try, which again Kaihan mentioned. It's given to people who tried very hard. Could be 6 months, 3 months, as low as 3 to 4 months, to as high as 3 years, but they failed. So the recognition is given for people for making bold attempts to try something very innovative. Piloted technologies are for people who are in research. Because normally research guys, by the time the research comes into the market, they would have completed 2 more research projects, or 1 more research project, or 3 more research projects, depending upon the industry. So they don't get the limelight, so-called. So we recognize them as soon as they file a patent or get a patent, and we have a method to figure out which one is a better patent as compared to other patents. Design honor is for the people who are in designs, who design buildings, who design jewelry, who design cars, who design mobile apps, who design web apps, who design product packaging and stuff like that. Anything which is related to design. It could bridges design, Atal Setu design, so to speak, which was done by Tata Projects. So, and this year in the design category, we have the Ayodhya Temple as a nomination from Tata Project, just to give you an example. For the foundation of the Ayodhya Temple, Tata Projects. Most innovative partner is for partners, downstream partners and upstream partners both, who participate, who come and showcase what innovations they have done, which has benefited them, as well as the Tata Group, as well as the Tata customers. And then we have sustainability impact innovations, which recognizes those innovations which have impacted communities, which is CSR projects, or the safety of employees, or the safety of the partners' employees, or the environment. It's all about carbon, and all the SDGs that we know about. So this is how we try to inspire, encourage people to take up innovation projects and come and show. And this is how the growth has been. We started in 2006, where the nominations were 101. There are a few Tata people I can see here, and I'm sure they will agree that this is not a top-down process. This is pure democratic process. Any employee who feels that they have done a good job, which is perhaps an innovation, they can participate. So this year we have received 16,000 plus nominations, which have been submitted by 19,000 plus 16,000, about 35,000, because every nomination has a team behind them. About 40,000 people have participated nominating the 16,000 projects, and we have 16 recognitions typically every year, presented by the chairman of Tata Group to the 16 teams. So one team out of 16,000, 1,000. So 1 per 1,000 wins the award from the group chairman. That's the amount of evaluation which goes into it. But I thought I'll spend some time on, since we are in the HR conference, the culture, I thought let me give you some deep dive on the Dare to Try. If you remember Dare to Try? Dare to Try was the second, middle top, reserved for the failure. So the jury looks for 4 things. Intent, again, a word borrowed from you, looks like we started this thinking about the same time, Kaihan and Ravi. Exemplary intent, the intent has to be exemplary, the effort has to be exemplary, the exit has to be exemplary, and the reactions from the management and from all stakeholders, so to speak, has to be exemplary. And some of these details are available in the book. If you showcase these 4 exemplary behaviors, the Dare to Try award is given in the same evening when the Successful Innovations Awards are given by the chairman. So the chairman gives all the awards on the same day, and for the CEOs present in the hall clap not only for implemented innovations, successful innovations, but they clap equally loud for the Dare to Try as well. We undertook a study with INSEAD and SMU business schools in Singapore just to be sure that these awards are serving as a painkiller and not as a negative impact, which means it should not drive people to fail deliberately in some sense. So it should just be a painkiller, not overdose of painkiller. So we did this longitudinal study of 8 years of data, and it showed that people who participate in Dare to Try have a higher chance of participating, which means working harder to become successful in the subsequent years. which is what we wanted. So we have continued with this, Dare to Try award. I think that I'm not giving you, I'm not talking about some of these examples, but I guess you can make out the right one is all about the car that we launched, Nano. And the Dare to Try award was given to a Tata team which made the plastic door, although we'd never put a plastic door. But the door was very strong. It passed all the tests. And the team, to save the cost, recommended that we have a plastic door in the Nano car, but we never came with a plastic door. So therefore, it was a Dare to Try, because it was a failed attempt, so to speak. And the left side is a car that is another example of trying to make a coating for steel using the protein extracted from bacteria. And the bacteria, I'm talking about bacteria of, which is in one of the oceans, I don't remember. And the work happened for 3 years. And it failed, and therefore the Dare to Try award was given to this team. So these are a few examples from Tata InnoVista program, and moving quickly to the next program, which is the Tata EHAC program. I'm shifting. So Tata InnoVista is almost like the end of the innovation funnel, if you understand. The work has happened, and people nominate themselves for the award. It's almost the end of the funnel, or somewhere in the middle of the funnel if it is a failure, or if it's middle of the funnel if it's a patent. But we have this program which is at the beginning of the funnel. We call it a Tata EHAC program, crowdsourcing program. We have been doing this program for maybe 3 to 4 years, and every third Monday and the fourth Monday it goes live. So it means twice a month it goes live. We have not missed a single Monday. We believe in that. That's what I said. Culture. If you have a process which is enjoyable, which is continuously, which do it rigorously, it becomes a culture. So we believe in that, and with that spirit, we are running with this program every third and fourth Monday. It starts with the wicked challenges. Wicked challenges are challenges which once you read, you feel, yeah, we can solve it. But when you sit down, you struggle. But every time you try to give up, you once again want to give it another shot. So we call them as wicked challenges. It catches your attention, but not easy to solve. And these challenges go live on third and fourth Monday every month, and invites ideas from Tata employees. We promise lifelong anonymity to employees for their ideas. So lifelong anonymity guaranteed. You remember the first fear of sharing ideas? So that fear we try to overcome by promising lifelong anonymity. So anybody can give ideas without any hesitation as to what will somebody else think, what will the manager think, what will the company think, what will the reader think. Ideas are visible to everybody, but names are not visible. And this helps in unbiased evaluation as well. And the platform is built that encourages a lot of gamification and stuff like that. I'm sure you know gamifications. I'm not going into details. And there is some data at the bottom. But anonymity is there for lifelong. But if the idea is selected, about 5 out of 100, or maybe 7 out of 100, I don't have that stat. But 7 out of 100 ideas after evaluation are selected, and their names are only declared. So we declare the names of only those people who can feel proud of it. We don't reveal the names of people who don't feel good about it. So that's how you look at it. So the anonymity, after this names are revealed, we give some inputs to the teams, we build capability, training and stuff like that, and they make a pitch to the jurors. We call it our Dolphin and Shark Tank. We don't call it Shark Tank, but we call it Dolphin and Shark Tank because we want trying to build a culture and an enabling culture that promotes entrepreneurship. And these are some stats, very quick stats for the last 2 years. So as I said, we do continuously, the participation is high. The interesting thing is 76%, that's the highlight of this slide. 76% of the ideas come from other companies, which means if a Titan has floated a challenge and it receives 100 ideas, 76 would come from other Tata companies and 24 will come only from Titan. That's what is external ideas means, but it's within the group, within the Tata group. But at least 76% ideas, not only which come, but also the selected ones also is 76%, by and large. 76, 77, 78%. So the high number of ideas come from outside. which is good. So Titan gives it to Motors, and Motors give it to Titan. So it works very well for amongst the 1 million employees that we have. So some examples. I think I'll skip these examples, but you can just stay on this slide for a minute. Third Monday are business challenges. In simple words, people who have studied MBA, for them it's third Monday, and people who are engineers or researchers, for them it's fourth Monday, in simple words. So these are all MBA type of problems. Ideation open for only 7 days, not 15 days, 7 days. And the fourth Monday, it's 15 days because there are more engineering and science-based challenges, as you can see. So third Monday and fourth Monday is when what we keep doing it month after month. Moving to the last program, in the last 5 minutes that are left, is Tata Innoverse. Now this program goes beyond the Tata ecosystem. In this case, we do two things. We have built an ecosystem of startups, faculty members, retired people, freelancers, mostly technical in nature. And then we have created an enabling process. So you all can Google, you can open a website called tatainnoverse.com in your break time, and you can see technical challenges listed by Tata companies and the cash award announced upfront, which is something which we learned from Chessbro, to be honest. We invited Chessbro around 10 years ago to speak to Tata Group leadership teams. That was 10 years ago. So, and since I mentioned Chessbro and since I mentioned open innovation, let me narrate a story in 1 minute. Chessbro came to us and did some workshops in Bombay, Calcutta, Bangalore, and I was traveling along with him. And he just shared the story that you just throw problems and people will give you ideas, and that's fantastic. And Chessbro left, and we started speaking to Tata companies. We said, "Come on, let's throw some problem statements." And there was an absolute lull. For 1 year, we did not get a single problem statement from anybody. And that's when we realized that we need to do something about it. We could figure out that managers are supposed to solve problems. You hire managers and engineers to solve problems, and then you say, "I'm not able to solve a problem." It's not easy. It's difficult to say that I'm not able to solve a problem. It reflects poorly on the managers, on the HR, and everybody. That how can you not solve a problem? So it was very difficult, and then the people give excuses that no, if you throw problems to outside world, they will know our strategy, but that's an excuse, I believe. It's the former, which is the primary problem. So that's when we started a program called Tata E-Hackathon, much earlier, or Tata Ideas, where we thought, let a company start throwing problems within itself. You mentioned about silos, similar problem. So we said, okay, let Titan Jewelry share their problem with Titan Watches, and watches share a problem with eyewear, and so on and so forth. So that's what the first step. The second step was group one Tata company to the other Tata company. The third step was Tata's interacting with companies like P&G, IBM, and others, sharing problems and stuff like that. And then we started practicing what Chessbro. So it took 5 years' time to build that culture of willingness to share problems with the outside world. It was not easy. So we get plenty of problems now from companies. We get about 50 problems. Suppose we get 50 problems, we pick about 5 to 6, not more than that, because now we have a problem of plenty. It's the opposite. So our team can handle only 5 to 6 at a time, per month, you can say. So we do workshops, we get problem statements. That's approach number one. So we have a second approach also, which we started last year, where every month on a particular theme, we invite startups to make a pitch, wherein we call 5 startups to make a pitch on a chosen theme, and we call about 500 Tata people to listen to that pitch. And in some sense, the pitch ignites, gives them ideas as to what problems they can solve, and they themselves start practicing approach one, instead of we coming into the picture. The approach one is something that facilitated by the central team, but to scale it up, we introduced approach two, and now matchmaking happens automatically. So the managers pick up the startup and they start solving problems themselves. So that's approach two, and we pick up mostly, as I said, science-based problems. So this approach two has started about 18 months ago. So we have done about 18 pitch sessions. Not easy. For every theme you start from about 7,000 startups that are available globally, and coming to 5 startups from 7,000 is a massive exercise. Selecting the 5 which are meaningful, relevant to Tata Group is not easy. So we have done about 62 POCs, and we take problem statements which meet two conditions. Condition number one, the Tata company should not be actively working, that particular challenge owner should not be actively working on that problem statement, which means the person and the company has given up. We cannot solve it. That's the condition number one. And there is a second condition which I'll skip, but the primary condition is that the company should not be actively pursuing that problem statement. Then only we take those up. And our experiences, our learning, if I were to summarize, is typically companies, if they face a problem, they want one partner who can solve that problem for them. As the complexity is increasing and as the specialization is becoming more finer and finer, it's very difficult to find a partner who can solve complex problems. What we do is we break the problems into parts, 3-4 parts, and get solutions in pieces from 3-4 partners. Or sometimes we cook solutions and then we integrate it together, which needs again patience. So the patience is very important for innovation, is the message that I wanted to leave behind. But if we want to come out with more and more innovations, we have no choice but to show that patience and to so in some sense, what Kaihan mentioned that, and I think you also mentioned that having a structure and having a process improves your chances of practicing innovation and building the culture of innovation. I'll stop here. Yeah. Thank you very much. And this is the overall programs that we run in Tata Group. I shared about the Tata EHAC program, and I talked about the Tata InnoVerse program, and I talked about the Tata InnoVista program. I picked up 3 for the 30 minutes that I have today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. I really think, when you talked about thinking, when you talk about, in dare to try, exemplary intent, exemplary effort, exemplary exit, and exemplary reaction, in most companies I said, I told you so, you will fail. But I really loved your thought of exemplary reaction. Okay, moving quickly forward, going to invite Rajiv Narang, who's the founder, MD of Erehwon Consulting. Hey. Oh. Your mic.
Hello, friends. Great pleasure to be here with you. And I was, in any case, listening to the first two. So the question is to build on that theme a little further. The question, I'm sure, when we talk about an entrepreneurial spirit and innovation, we've often associated it with the whole idea of a physics metaphor. Finally, what we want is to move the organization into another orbit. But what is the challenge? I'm sure all of you have experienced at one level that talking about the orbit, the biggest enemy is gravity, right? All of you have experienced it. We get comfortable with one way of thinking, working. You throw the apple and it comes right back. I'm sure all of you have experienced it, at the beginning of the year when we have New Year resolutions. How many of you have made New Year resolutions? What happens to them? You'll be lucky if it lasts a week. But really, why I'm illustrating that is the same challenge happens at every level in society. So what does it take to make innovation happen is a battle against gravity fundamentally. At every level, really. And the heart of that is the mindset. So, we talk structures, processes, but the heart of the matter is you can have a new structure, practice the old way. I'm sure you've seen that, a new idea going into the old pipe. At every level. So really the battle of innovation that we found across these years, we tried techniques, tools, practices, but the heart of the matter was really the mindset question. So I'll share with you what does it take to make that happen at a mindset level really, to unlock that. And once we unlock that, how it can actually create the escape velocity finally needed to make it happen. And the name of the organization has already been introduced. So in case you are wondering why would we turn the word nowhere upside down and call the name of the organization Erehwon, you know, we were lucky enough to have found our mission in one word. When you split nowhere, you notice it becomes now here. From nowhere to now here, impossible to possible, hopelessness to hope. That's the mission of innovation and that's our mission. Interesting thing is it's an interesting brand name, so once people see it, they don't forget it. You know, even after years, I'll get a call saying, you are the nowhere people. That's not what I meant really. But so let's talk about what does it take to make it happen, really, the how of it, and especially the mindset element in it. So really, we practice orbit shifting innovation, or which is nothing but innovation-led transformation. I'd urge you to think orbit shifting is the purpose, innovation is a means. It's not the end. So the moment organizations start managing innovation, we are tackling the wrong end of the stick. There's nothing called managing innovation. If you want to create the next leap, innovation is a means, right? But if there's no appetite, where is the question of needing innovation? So the starting point really is, what do we want to do? Purpose is transformation. Innovation again is a means. So this is a spectrum of experience we have across industries. We're very, very fascinating across these 35 years of a journey. I was lucky enough to have married passion and profession very early. So interesting, you notice very modern sectors, some very traditional ones, right from agriculture to media to automation, literally and across. And also fascinatingly across the world too. So really India, Europe, US, China of late. But what I'll share with you is some of the insights which have come through these journeys. And a lot of this work is actually where we facilitated a breakthrough. Worked with a team to actually make that breakthrough happen. At the same time, build a, these are the ways in the insight has come from these kind of experiences. Creating breakthrough strategies, what does it take? Transforming customer engagement, to NPD, new product development, to create new values. These are kind of questions. Democratizing innovation. We've talked about that. It's not just few guys at the top. It can happen bottom up too. So that's another passion, that what does it take to truly democratize it? And of course, these days we are talking about digital in a big way. Talk about a new idea going into an old pipe. I think a great example is digital. Of how underutilized it actually is. And you'll find some of these insights in the book. By the way, the same book, 3 publishers. So in case they look different. So actually, when you look at this map, what's your first reaction? I loved this map when I saw it for the first time. What's your first reaction? Nowhere. A lot of people are showing me with their hand. It looks upside down. We came across this map in Australia with this challenging statement below it. No apologies are called for in presenting the map with the south at the top. After hundreds of years of development, southern lands have no reason to be under the northern hemisphere. Why am I showing this to you? What has it got to do with innovation? What connected with me was that this is really where a journey of innovation actually begins, where somebody questions the world order and doesn't stay with it. It doesn't matter who's created it. Could be the UN or anybody. Finally, it's a human being like you and me. The question to ask ourselves is, are we letting the industry define us, or we are here to define the industry? A lot of times you notice companies say, I belong to this industry. But so? You notice in all sectors, when you look across, you'll find every sector has one market leader and many, many followers. But new things begin to happen when somebody dares to question and dares to challenge. So, by the way, what companies would you call challengers and not followers? Any first names? The spontaneous? Netflix, Apple? Usual suspects, any others? I'm sure you'll at once think of a few. But people in this room put together, we know millions of companies, whom you haven't thought of. You know, think about it. History forgets equally fast. But when you think of challenges, really, when we talk about entrepreneurial spirit, think about it fundamentally. It's about moving from a follower to a challenger. Because the follower mindset gets established very firmly and strongly. You know, when people join a new organization, they learn how to survive incredibly fast. It's about, you know, what is induction? It's about the questions not to ask here. You know, you learn that amazingly quickly, huh? Now, actually, let's frame innovation. When I talked about challenges, let's examine this. All the names you first thought of, they created an incremental impact or a quantum impact on the market? The ones that we spontaneously thought about. Not incremental, but quantum. But the need for innovation could have been reactive or proactive. Essentially, it could be problem-led or opportunity-led. By the way, they could be both. You know, when you map these, at least for us, what's emerged is reactive and incremental is a day-to-day problem fixing, no getting away from it. You know, continuous improvement is what the Japanese made famous as Kaizen, right? The biggest value was it moved us from problem to opportunity. But it's still incremental. The top two zones is really where we have focused on hugely because we believe that's really what's needed now. Not just fixing the problem, finding a transformative solution. Not an incremental opportunity, but a leaping opportunity. What could that be? And if you plot these two, you'll notice the bottom two are needed even to maintain the orbit today. Even to stay where you are today, we need to do problem fixing and continuous improvement. But we want to create a next orbit. It means the capacity of the organization has to change, right? Fundamentally of the people. To think differently because now the question is changed. It's not fixing the problem, it's maybe eliminating the problem is the question, right? I'm sure you will be able to foretell a number of problems. Almost happen with regularity. I'm sure all of you can. So the question is, why are we living with it? How about eliminating the problem? That will call for a different order of thought. Not just incremental improvement opportunity, but a leap opportunity. You know, that's called for a different way of spotting opportunities even. So that's really what we focused on and tried to discover and create a process. By the way, orbit shifting innovation has always happened. All these innovators that you hear about, the trouble is it has happened incidentally and accidentally. The right guy in the right place at the right time and innovation happens. Trouble is making the second and the third happen. The second and the third will have to happen by design now. It cannot be, you can't wait for hope and accident anymore. So that's the question we've tried to really live with and crack across these years. What does it take to make it happen by design? At all levels and across. You know, so challenges create a new orbit, achieve quantum impact. As followers get stuck in the orbit. And, you know, this picture, I'm sure, evokes an immediate response in you. This is what the culture starts looking like inside an organization. You know, after some time, it's so amazing how we induct people into thinking the same way. And it happens very slowly but surely. Interestingly, not just in an organization, an entire category or an industry begins to think like this. It's amazing how, you know, we work across the sector. You believe me, what they call our ideas and agendas and opportunities take across the sector and industry, you'll find everybody is working on the same thing. They're just talking about doing something faster, cheaper, better, but it's the same thing. It's astonishing how conditioning can affect the entire industry. You know, when we were working with insurance a few years ago, we were told, it's a push industry. Don't you know? That's how this industry works. But why is it push? Who said it is push? Amazingly, nobody said it, but everybody believes it. The starting point was challenging that. We'll convert it pull. Now let's start a new question. Orbit shifting begins by questioning the boundary, not by living within the boundary. It doesn't matter who's created it. There are people like you and me who've created it. And after some time, it's amazing how people stop questioning it even. Just to give you an example. You know, from one of the very early clients and the earliest success we had was with Marico. It's really famous now. When we were starting out with it, they had succeeded with 2 brands, and the challenge was what next? You know, that point in time, the organizational belief was stay out of the firing line of MNCs. Stated philosophy almost. You know that you carve niche, these giants can crush you. Now, unfortunately, the reverse happened, that a giant attacked them. At that point in time, Marico was considered to be a takeover client. Unilever had just bought over many companies. So this was virtually the next, and the cash cow was Parachute. I'm sure you are aware of Parachute, most of you. Coconut, blue-colored bottle. You would have seen it. Now, so Unilever launched a brand called Nihar against Parachute, a coconut oil, commodity product ultimately. They were outspending Marico almost 5-1 in the media. That's when our innovation journey was beginning, and Harsh Mariwala's question to me was, can we apply innovation here? The classical thinking is innovation is equal to NPD, right? New products. This is a different question altogether. So our classical reaction is, well, why not? Challenges are exciting, especially we've never done it before. So fair enough, we started, and the whole new sales and marketing team was formed. We started working. 2 days of brainstorming, and nothing was really very inspiring. There didn't seem to be any light at the end of the tunnel. You know, on digging deeper at the end of the second day, the gravity began to emerge. What was holding it back, this whole team? You know, in the water cooler conversations outside, that's where reality comes through, right? The water cooler conversations outside, not in the workshop. There, some people were telling me, said, come on, Rajiv, let's be real. We can't beat a giant. And we just don't have the capacity to compete. Look at their budget and ours, nowhere. What can we do? On the other side, there were some salespeople telling me, I'm getting nightmares of green walls. Bihar was green. It was all over the market. So that's what the thinking was. To me, the biggest realization was that in their minds, these people have already lost. The question was, so all the thinking was how to lose less. All ideation was stemming from there, right? The heart of the gravity, the box was there. So then when we got together, we confronted this very directly between us. Okay, so the breakthrough that happened that evening was at a mindset level, really, from defender to attacker. The defender mindset was all about losing less. Why are we talking about losing less? If we can't beat them with resources, we'll beat them with ideas. And why are we talking about playing the media game? Distribution is our strength. We'll play the distribution game. And actually that unlocking, that mindset shift that happened, it unleashed energy, or in a different direction altogether. Not play the game by the competitor's rule, right? Create our own game. And that year, Parachute went on to its highest market share ever. And at a fraction of the resources of what the giant had spent. And a few years later, I'm sure you recall that Marico went on to buy this brand from Unilever. So it kind of completed the story. But the heart of the matter was really what? Is really the core mindset, attitude towards status quo, not a defender but an attacker. Not conforming but questioning. All along, what it defined for them was you can out-innovate the competitive giant, doesn't matter who that person might be. And from there onwards, this is early 2000, it's gone on to an amazing success story post this. But the starting point was really that, right? To break through that fundamental mindset which is becoming the gravity. And the same people did it. It didn't take a change of teams. The same people. Actually, in all the examples I'll share with you, this is the one thing which will stand out. How the same people were capable of leading an orbit shift. You didn't have to hire superheroes from anywhere. That's another myth, right? In the innovation world, that you have to look for supermen and superheroes. So when the moment I say what differentiates challengers, actually the first thing that crops up, and my 2 speakers have already spoken about it a lot, is what differentiates challengers? They can take risk. I'm confident that's the first thing that will come to your mind. Everybody talks about it. But what is risk exactly? When we say risk, what do we mean? For us, what has stood out is the bigger risk is not commercial risk, but personal risk. It's not the fear of losing money, it's the fear of losing face. What holds back people, fundamentally? The fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, whether you achieve something or not, how do you live with that failure? Is the heart of the matter, is the biggest barrier by far. You know, in most organizations, what we find is success. What's the definition of success? Success equals not failing. Imagine success equals not failing. Therefore, you'll pick up only challenges which you know you can succeed with, right? Where is the question of even trying something else? As you notice, people become very good at managing perception. In this case, one very fascinating experience happened with a vehicle finance company from the Murugappa group in south of India. The vehicle finance firm, now the finance firm, they had not shown much growth. In the group meets which happened at the end of the year, as they were discussing growth, the discussion quickly shifted to why aren't we not growing? Somebody said we are risk averse. Everybody nodded their head, yeah, we are very risk averse. You know, interestingly, in a group, have you seen this discussion happen where we are very risk averse? When that kind of discussion is happening, everybody is talking, yes, we are risk averse. When we are talking we, nobody means me. Right? Everybody believes the other guy is a risk averse, actually. You know, if they were different, things would be different. We had just started work with the vehicle finance company. For Vasu, the guy who was leading it, the realization was me. I am risk averse. How come in a growing industry we've not grown? That can't be because of the group. That realization, and you know, that's the mindset shift that we were talking about, right? How do we make that move happen? Because once this move shifted in his mind, he got his teams together to look at, they were called dream meetings, you know, what should we attempt next year? So in their hype creation, the reverse hype happened. By the end of the first day, they were talking about doubling next year. You know, all this sounded great, but then somebody asked a question. He said, you know, all this very nice talk between us, but what are we going to promise the board? All this sounds very nice sitting here, what if we don't succeed? And now gravity was beginning to pick up, right? The reality was hitting. That's a fact. We won't make our incentives in any case. But won't we look foolish as well? So then somebody came up with an idea. He said, no, I have an idea. What's the idea? You know, between us, we'll aim for 200 next year. We were 100 last year, 200, double is what we'll aim between us. But to the board, let's promise 10% growth. Have you heard this? Sounds familiar, this conversation? Between you and me, we'll aim. But let's promise 10% to the board. Where do you think if they had actually done that, what would have been the outcome? Most likely. That they gave 10%, 100, 110, 112, budget achieved, but dream is dead forever. Do you think next year if he invites them for a similar meeting, people will take him seriously at all? By now, cynicism has developed. But for him, the biggest realization was, I have to put my neck on the table first. He committed 200 to the board without knowing how to do it. If you notice that the question is, take on a challenge, we'll figure out how, we don't know how. That takes risk. So he burnt the bridge, fundamentally. All his branches also, essentially, they were encouraged, they went to the press saying that we'll double next year. All publicly burning the bridge. Now the energy was all about how to get there. It was not about, by the way, a lot of people become very proactive in how to find excuses. You must have, people are very proactive on that. If it doesn't work, we'll say this. But here, now the energy was only about how to move forward. That bridge was burnt. They went into an 80% growth. Did they fail? Not really. It was amazing progress. And over the next 5 years, they went from 200 to 800 crores as a business. But now the question was, why are we talking last year? Can't be a reference point for a growing industry. Market share also doesn't mean anything. It's opportunity share. And believe me, the way they redefined incentive was most interesting. Why are we talking piddly incentives to the choti si cheez hai. I mean, if I have shown 3x growth in my industry, who doesn't want me? Right now, the talent value has gone up. Na? Employability has gone up. That's what matters finally. Indexing was with reference to the industry growth in the area, not last year's goal. So that's where the appetite question comes from. When people begin to think corporate shift, innovation becomes a means, right? And they all innovated in the process of sales, etc. So you notice in Marico's case, it was a problem, right? They were being attacked. They didn't simply fix the problem, they found a transformative solution. In the vehicle finance company, Cholamandalam's case, not an improvement, but a proactive leap opportunity came through. So what are we talking about? Two mindsets. The first I've spoken about earlier. Second one was not capability forward, but challenge back. So you notice that what's the big mindset shift needed? It's not what we can do, therefore what we'll attempt. What is needed to be done? Now let's figure out how. We don't know how, we'll figure out how. In fact, if you know how, it's orbit maintaining. Orbit shifting is what needs to be done, we don't know how. That's when new questions come and new answers come, right? So think about it, that whenever your mind and you're trying to solve a problem, imagine in your mind a window opens and you start seeing the problem through that window. We call it a frame, like a camera frame. We want a new idea, we have to shift the frame. What they call thinking out of the box, those boxes are nothing but frames. Which frame a problem in one way. Sorry, let me go back. I've jumped a couple of them accidentally. Oh, I've moved much forward now. Well. Just back, one more back. Yeah, thank you. So here, Unilever has globally been a very large client of ours. One of the very first projects we started with them was it was a global laundry project. Challenge was what next? I'm just sharing the thinking that took shape at the beginning of it. Now, classically, by the way, we were also told we've done a classical hackathon equivalent. So we've invited people from all over the world to give ideas. They had 4,000 ideas. But obviously nothing was really inspiring, which is how this conversation with us even started, that what next? So we asked them to just share those ideas with us and we'll map the frames. Actually, think about it. Thinking out of the box, we all hear about a lot. I'm sure all of you have talked about it. Trouble is, out of which box? And how does one even find the box? Actually, what I'd urge you to think, what we find is that the answer is not thinking out of the box, is finding the boxes first. Mapping, so we start is just to map the boundaries of thinking. The moment you see the box, you'll see what lies beyond it. Now, in this case, all those 4,000 ideas, we were trying to find the boxes. Interestingly, by the way, when you think of the word laundry and ask yourself, what's the purpose of laundry? What's your first reaction? What's the purpose of laundry? Just share with me. Naturally, right? That's obvious. So think about it. What's the frame? So which means laundry is a post-dirt intervention. The moment I frame it as post-dirt intervention, does an idea open up in your mind? I'm sure you'll challenge the boundary immediately. What about pre-dirt? What about preventing dirt? You see, the moment you see the box, you'll see what lies outside of it. Instantly. The other thing was, so laundry is actually, as a process, is all about removing, right? The unwanted. It removes. I'm using the word remove. Then the obvious challenge was, what can it add? Why should it only remove? The box is remove. Can it add something? What do you think it could add? Fragrance, of course. Freshness, of course. The opportunity thought emerged. What about adding health? A lot of fabric is advertising anti-UV today. But why is it fabric dependent if it could be conditioner driven? Changes the question. Are you noticing that how out of the box thinking starts with first finding the frames, the current way of thinking, and then makes it easier. So really, everything is, what I'm sharing with you are mindsets and approaches which can make it happen by design. So it doesn't need to wait for a happy accident. Look at this. With one power company, the question was, how do you improve the productivity of a solar plant? It's solar farm. This is how solar farms look like, right? And the norm is roughly 1 megawatt. It takes 4 acres of land. Land is a stress issue. Getting so much land is always a problem. So the challenge is again to reduce it. Now, if you classical orbit maintaining thinking is 10% less, 15% less. Believe me, when you think like that, you only get incremental ideas, right? Here, with the classical orbit shifting way, the challenge became, what about eliminating the need of land? ये फिर वही हो गया. Looks like I'll. Actually, here the challenge started with the orbit shifting challenge. The starting point is when we say orbit shift, let's start with an orbit shifting challenge. A challenge which cannot be done by doing more of the same. The starting point was here, for example, it became, why do we need land? Forget 10% land. Eliminate the need for land. Now, the purpose is not a performance goal. It's an escape velocity question. To break the boundary completely. Then they started exploring vertical structures, completely different way of thinking, and believe me, it led to a fountain-like structure where 3 megawatts happens in 1 acre as a prototype. From 4 acres yielding 1 megawatt to 1 acre yielding 3. In hindsight, it will be very obvious to you. That's the amazing part about all innovations, right? In hindsight, they are so obvious. But trouble is getting it. So what we are talking about, the third one, the critical one is also how we engage with customers has to fundamentally change, the mindset shift. The classical mindset is hearing the voice of the customer is still participative only. Voice is the articulated. How to get to the unstated, unarticulated, unmet needs? Because you see, when it's unmet, there's no rocket science in that. They're just things we think but don't say. The things we feel but don't share. It's made out to be bigger rocket science than it is. It's just being human and engaging with people a lot more easily and completely. And how much opportunity there could be. You know, one such story of a different kind, I've given you B2C kind of examples. Let's talk B2B. A lot of you might be B2B in this group. Are there? Some people whose business model is business to business. You know, one thing in B2B, this is IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances. They provide the soaps, the flavors and perfumes which go into a soap or a shampoo. So all Unilever, P&G, etc. were their customers. So this fragrance team, they want. The starting point was again, the orbit shift was, we have to grow. 3-4x growth is what we want. Now the first question was that our win rate with customers was very low. By the way, all of these large companies, when they are changing a fragrance, they usually have 5 or 6 empaneled suppliers. So they give the brief, they will come up and pitch. Now, they were winning only once brief out of every 6. That was if you have to grow, we have to change that, right? We have to increase our success rate. Now, how do you increase the success rate? By the way, their end of the year customer feedback was all very good. Huh? That the paper pencil exercise or feedback was all good. So they couldn't correlate the two. Feedback is good and yet we are winning 1 out of 6, something is out of place. So in order to break that, we went back to the customers to have a genuinely, not a feedback discussion, but just to understand what are your challenges. What are you trying to solve for to grow your business, by the way? It's got nothing to do with us. In that process, the insight that struck them was that the customer, when they were making decisions, the question was what will differentiate them with the end market, with the end user. They were really stunned with that, but the customer had never asked for that in the brief. You know, the so-called briefs that we get, differentiation is never a question. The problem has already been solved by the customer. They are telling you how to supply. They were being a great supplier. But that's not what was needed. What was needed was to work with them to co-develop products which would be differentiated with the end user. Now that shifted the orbit completely in their minds, and they went to that from that point onwards, going back with not one but two solutions for every brief. First brief, if the customer asks for a fragrance, we'll go back to what he wanted, exactly what he said. Second, what we believe, if done, would differentiate them with the end user. That meant end user insight had to start with, consumer insight. So they created a team to do that. By the way, this led to their success rate going from 1 in 6 to 4 in 6. And amazingly enough, a few years later, they became the co-development partner. So in fact, when in most companies, the question was, oh, we are developing a new product, who? Well, let's talk to IFF. We should include them right now at the design stage. And in case they can't do it, then we'll make it an open brief. Now, I'm sure this is a position a lot of suppliers would love to be in. Becoming a co-development partner with an OEM of these big giants. But really, that happened very, and why did they become co-development partners? You know, when we inquired, the basic reason was not because they liked them. They understand the end consumer as much as we do. The confidence was coming from the end consumer insight being as high. Now that's very rare, right, in a B2B scenario. Extremely rare, but clearly doable. That the customer engagement has to shift fundamentally. You know, the question, I'm sure, when we are talking about our team members internally, how do we, entrepreneurial spirit, is all about moving people from just being participative. Who's participative? A good follower, tell them what to do and they'll do it very well. To people who will move beyond, right, and take charge. So what does it take to take charge? All the examples I shared with you were of teams that took charge finally and created their own script. So essentially, people moving them from participative to generative. The final example I'm sharing with you is from Titan Jewelry. Ravi will know this very well, but an example I'm particularly proud of. You know, here, a plant of the jewelry plant, which a McKinsey had said should be shut down, it was so inefficient, was transformed with bottom-up innovations. Completely at the shop floor level innovations. And who were these people? They were people coming in from diplomas, ordinary people, right? Who did the extraordinary in this case. Our role was a coach, was to enable them, inspire them, equip them with the tools. They took on challenges, and within a few years, this plant has been transformed with bottom-up innovations. And a number of those innovations, believe me, are first to the industry at a global level. They weren't just simply meeting best practices. Look at it, in a few years, 60% of the workforce became innovators, 70 innovation challenges were solved, added 5 billion, and most importantly, number of first-to-the-world innovations. In fact, after a few years of this completion, in a global survey by Harvard, this was ranked as one of the top 10 role models of innovation at a global level. And who are the people? Absolutely the same ordinary people doing the extraordinary. I mean, what it demonstrates clearly is the capacity people possess, right? And when we say benchmarking with the best practices, that is orbit maintaining. Why couldn't we be creating best practices? So these are the kind of challenges, including plant productivity, setup times, how it is moved from 8 products a day to 8 products a minute kind of thinking. You know, at all levels, literally. And there's something similar in the team that in India organization, the IBIS hotels, the brand is owned globally, but the local Indigo group, that's the same group that does this. They took on the challenge of reducing the cost of construction of a new hotel. Now, per room cost. Per room was costing 45 lakhs. Now, naturally, budget hotel challenge was to bring that down. By transforming construction technologies, construction processes, they brought it down to 25 lakhs. Again, the starting point was to do that without compromising customer experience. So that can't be the cost of that. So what it is showing you, finally, I'm just going to leave you with these 3 myths. We've talked about this today. Innovation means new products? Not really. In fact, we've expanded that amazingly. Let's talk about the second. By the way, this is something I'd like you to think about. This is another myth that innovation equals long-term and big budgets. It could even mean solving today's problem differently. To take the Marico example, right? let's not only cast it as a long-term story, it could be an immediate opportunity also. Solving a problem differently. In fact, convert the problem into an opportunity. We need to hire superheroes. I think I've demonstrated that to you enough. That we don't need to hire superheroes. It's about finding the superhero in our people today. It's not equals ideation, it's breaking through boundaries. The out of the box begins there. Not about commercial risk, but personal risk. The crux is to create that environment for people to grow, by the way. All of these examples I've shared with you, those people grew as leaders. Because when you've been through a journey like this, your growth happens, right, as a person, as a career. This is another one. The big idea is enough. Not really. It will take a lot of multiple levels of innovation to execute the idea. Every stage, the idea will go into an old pipe. The challenge is a product innovation needs a marketing innovation. It may need a supply chain innovation. So to believe one idea is enough, it will require serial innovation at every level. And I'd urge you, actually, even today we've been talking about it, that only 15% innovation succeed. But honestly, in a risk-averse world, even 15% succeeding is great. Because where are we? In a spray and pray mode. Spray and pray, 15% will be a natural success mode. What we have seen is when you design for it, 80% can succeed. But we have to design for it. We can't believe 15%. We can't design for 15%. We have to design for 100%. Then 80%, 75% succeeding is very likely. So these are the mindsets that we've spoken about at the heart of the matter all along the innovation journey. And I'll just leave you with this thought finally. There are no impossible dreams or problems, just limited dreamers and problem solvers. Thank you.
I know we're taking a little extra time, but I'm sure each of you is enjoying the kind of work, the kind of philosophies, examples, and the thoughts that we're taking back. From defender to attacker. I mean, what a phenomenal thought altogether. Okay, without wasting more time, I'm going to invite the drone man. Okay. Are you going to fly some drones around? I mean, I see your equipment all the time. Ankit, here you go. Okay, sorry.
Perfect. Huh? Yeah. Perfect. Hi everyone, very good afternoon. I obviously have the toughest job in the room after 3 class acts. And especially inspiring acts. I think it's a very, very tough position that you've put me in by sending me last. It would have been much easier if I was the first one. I would have gotten off fast enough. But I think I will not share any specific ideas. I'll probably share as many stories as I can. And the story I want to start with is the story of IdeaForge. And just to sort of set a little bit more context, our own journey is not as long as some of the groups and businesses that we've seen here. But I'm sure that it'll be a fun, quick story to learn about. And I'll be as quick as possible about this conversation as well. We actually started building drones almost 2 decades back. Way back in 2004 is when we first came up with the quadcopter drone that you now see very commonly in weddings. I've been seeing it for many, many years. That's the first time we conceived the idea, and it came to us because I used to lead an innovation cell at IIT Bombay, and what I used to do is, when I came to IITs, I wanted to build a lot of
outcomes out of the ideas I used to have as a kid. That's why I thought I want to do engineering, and I overheard my parents that IITs are the best engineering colleges, was fortunate to get through. When I came there, I wanted to actually then do something about it, and that's when I started to go and ask for my faculty for money. They used to give me money. I used to go and ask them. I started with asking them for $3,000 to implement one of my ideas, which I had the fortune of actually showcasing to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And so it was inspiring to build something of your own, and we had an ecosystem that supported it. Ended up doing more of that. After a few attempts, somebody told me, "Yaar, tu har baar aa jata hai. You come every time, ask for more money." So then I came across an innovation cell, and that became my home for funding my ideas. And then I said that why should I be the only one benefiting? And I started to promote it. In one of those sessions, after the session, one of my co-founders came and he said that I want to make a hovercraft and float it in the Powai Lake next to the campus. That's when the idea of making something as an aerial robot came to our lives. And then we sat one afternoon, did a bunch of prototypes. We realized that the mandate was to find something innovative, and it was quite quick and easy to make the hovercrafts in the lab. So we decided we want to come up with something more innovative. So about 6 months later, because we were constantly thinking about the problem, we came up with the idea of these 4 rotors that could simplify a helicopter, and in the end made our first prototype in 2004, which failed, one of those failed innovations. But it started the spark of us investigating aerial technology, and from 4 till 8, we were more like having fun with the technology. We started the company in 2007. I quit my job of 6 months in 2006. My co-founders were graduating at IIT Bombay. They were 2 years my juniors, but we had about a year of non-overlap time. When they were about to graduate, I quit my job, make sure that the team is intact, came back. We started a company to do something entirely different, but this used to be our survival mode project. We used to go to IIT Bombay, get projects that would help us build technology for unmanned systems, and that technology we had a lot of fun with building. We retained the IP for that technology, and in 2008 we helped IIT Bombay secure top honors alongside MIT US in a competition, which sort of made a lot of labs in the country realize that there is a small business that can actually make this technology grounds up in the country. They came to us and they said, "Can you give the autopilot, which is the brains of the drones that we built, and help us fly some of the unmanned aircraft projects that they had at that time taken from the government?" And it was just coming up, this entire industry, very new, nascent. A lot of projects were getting floated to build technology, and we ended up supporting them. We delivered the world's smallest and lightest autopilot at that time to the Indian Defense Labs, made sure that their programs were successful. And that started our journey on the drone side and supplying something that high-tech to our labs initially. But in 2008, when the attacks on Mumbai happened and we saw that naval helicopters were being used to look into the 3rd and 4th floor of the hotel and other places, we realized that maybe our drones would have been a safer choice. Maybe they would have been inconspicuous. They would have been hidden from plain eyes and be able to do the same job. And that's when we decided that we'll take all the fun we were having with the technology and build product out of it. In 2009, we launched our first product. In 2010, we made our first sale. And since then, we have been focused on building this technology for our forces and have eventually graduated to doing a few more things with it, particularly around mapping as well. So these are the 2 use cases we serve in a very focused way at this point in time, and building for some more use cases. But just to give you a sense of scale, our customers have done over 500,000 or 500,000 missions on our drones. Almost every 4 minutes, an IdeaForge drone takes off in our country to do either a security or a productivity mission. So that's where we are today. And I think the only other achievement I want to highlight for IdeaForge is that IdeaForge became the first listed drone entity last year, and about a year back we got listed on the main markets of the country, and it's been an exciting space. So, one of the things that we did from the very beginning at IdeaForge was there were 3 or 4 very critical moments in our time, and that's what inspired us to do what we are doing today and how we are doing rather than what we are doing. First was that in 2005 we were participating in a competition. I had graduated, but my co-founders were participating in a competition, and I was their mentor when I was still at IIT, and there was an international competition, robotics competition. We won in India in a way that nobody could touch our hand. Like, we felt like we are the gods of this, this space. But in the international leg of that same competition, we were potentially humiliated equally badly. And that told us the first thing, and the first very important lesson for us was that we probably never aim to be locally the best. I think for us, being the world's best is very, very critical and important, because if you don't do that, it will show up, and it will show up and embarrass you in a very big way. And I think that mindset is what we have adopted over the years, ensured that whenever we build technology, we want to build the world's best and not just locally the best technology, or we have to be the world's first in building that technology. And I think for us, innovation is a very simple drive towards building the world's first or the world's best technology. And I believe that it simplifies and demystifies what innovation is all about. It's our effort to build either world's first or world's best, and when you do that, you are essentially going to have to do something more than what the world has done so far. If you do not do that, you are unlikely to do and achieve your goal of being the world's first or the world's best. And that by default means that you've innovated, you've done something new, and more often than not, you'll end up creating a new technology or a new process, a new method, a new approach towards achieving your aim. So I just thought that it'll be useful to simplify what I believe is ultimately innovation, right? Innovation is not in my opinion, it's not the strive to always go in a room and brainstorm and come out with a ton of ideas, and then hopefully some of them are world's best, but it's the effort of going into the room of solving a problem. And that problem may not be a real problem. It may just be something as simple as, how do we create the world's first of something or the world's best of something? And you'll still come out with something new, innovative, and you'll be able to continue to pursue that path. And this is what we do at IdeaForge. And I think the testament to that is that, of course, even today, when we look at the platforms that are arguably appearing to be commoditized as a business many times, because there are tons of companies who can build drones now, maybe hundreds in India itself. But when we go out and represent our country outside the world, outside in the real world, we know that we outperform pretty much everybody who is commonly leveraged in the ecosystem by almost 3x in the vectors that matter to the end customer. And I think that's the testament to just sticking to a very simple philosophy that we just want to build the world's first and the world's best. And how do we do that, or how do we enable that at IdeaForge, is because we also believe that it's not just my job or my team's job to do this, right? Ultimately, you need people. Innovation is not exclusive. I'm not solving each and every problem down at the shop floor. It's just not possible now, even if it was possible when we began, right? So innovation is not exclusive. Everyone should be participating in it. It is not ephemeral. It's not something that happens once in a while. It is something that has to keep happening in the organization for the organization to be ahead of the curve. And it is not magic. It's not like, and we've exemplified it through all our speakers this morning, that it is not magic. It's not something that can happen only if you have the right mindset of the right people. I think it's something that one can design for, which is what we have heard from all our speakers in the morning. And something very inspiring that I learned, and for me, a lot of transformative moments happen when some sporadic learning. Unfortunately, learning, in my opinion, is sometimes sporadic because learning and absorption have to happen together. We can have a lot of learning moments in life, but absorption many a times happens when you're trying to solve those specific problems. And therefore, my learning a lot of times has been sporadic because I'm not always in the moment to absorb. And when I am, it really sticks. So one evening, I was browsing Twitter, and it had a list of the world's best TED Talks. And one of the talks was a very fascinating talk by a gentleman who is a lawyer, who said that I want to argue with you all that the way we incentivize our workforce, our way we incentivize our people is actually horrible. And it has been proven by science that we should not be doing that. And the only place where the carrot and stick approach works is if you have a problem statement that says A plus B plus C is equal to D. If you have that written down like on a manufacturing floor, A plus B plus D is equal to C, that works as far as carrot and stick is concerned, because you can give the carrot or the stick to accelerate the pace at which that A plus B plus C comes together to deliver D, right? But when you have a problem statement where it says that A plus B plus I don't know what is equal to D, that's where this process breaks down. And he articulates something very simple, which I've listed out here, that the only way you can consistently solve is to have people who are autonomous, who don't need to be monitored every time or need to be told, do this, do that. They will do it by default, number one. Number two is that those people have to be people who seek excellence. They should be driven from inside, not because we tell them to be driving excellence, because they are motivated by themselves to deliver excellence. If you think of an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur is typically nobody else but these people, right? Who will not wait for you to tell them to solve a problem. They will solve the problem because it exists and because they want to be people who want to be solving problems. And why do they want to solve problems for the organization? Because they are connected with the vision and mission of the organization. So the process of creating entrepreneurs or process of having an organization that can do this consistently is, in my opinion, also the process of selecting the right people for the organization. If we do not have the right people in the organization, or if we are so used to, as leaders, in directing people in terms of what to do, we will not be able to build a culture despite all our best efforts to drive innovation, entrepreneurship, because we are so used to people following what we want them to do, right? So why will they have an incentive to do anything on their own, right? So I think I just wanted to outline what we do, right? I mean, ultimately, this is our intent, and I'm trying to rush quite fast as I can. But ultimately, what we do is we sat down once, we had somebody help us craft a vision and mission for the organization. And what is the vision and mission for the organization, right? Vision, mission, and values for the organization, in my opinion, is what comes naturally and instinctively to all of us as leaders. If we do not look at crafting vision and mission, it can be aspirational, but it should definitely be naturally what we think and default to when we get out of the room. I always look at strategy being something we will default to when we get out of the room, or ideas being what we will default to when we get out of the room rather than what we discuss in the room. Because when we discuss in the room, all of us are trying to be intelligent, all of us are trying to be very focused, very sharp. But the reality is that the moment we get back to our jobs, we end up completely forgetting what we discussed and we get back to the same habits. So if we can craft a way in which our vision, values, and our mission is aligned to who we are, not lying to ourselves, understanding who we default to is, I think, in my opinion, very, very crucial to the process of making all of these walk the floor of the organization rather than being ideas that we all discussed together, became very happy about, had a intellectual, if I may say, high on that day, but it won't stick because everyone defaults to their basic habits. So understanding yourself, each other is, I think, very, very crucial. Of course, you have to set up organizational goals, you have to ensure that you have. And the other part I wanted to highlight is that when we set up organizational goals, a lot of times I feel that we end up taking goals which are obviously very aspirational, obviously very very bold, but a lot of times they are also based on ideas. Based on a lot of ideas that, okay, I have this idea, let's do this. I have this idea, let's do this. Let's put some ideas into the plan and then hoping that those ideas will stick and get the goals done, right? A lot of times we end up defaulting to that. However, I feel that in my experience at least, and it's a small limited time of experience, is that ideas don't matter. Because those are just things that we will attempt to do. What matters is, and I love this small expression, which is strategy is nothing but a collection of real options. So we have to focus on creating real options in my view. Like real options should be there. It should not be something which is an idea, but it should be something that was tested, experimented, found to be useful, or we found spark in pursuing that further. And we have to do that experimentation and testing, in my opinion, in the least expensive way possible. One of the most favorite strategies that I heard of when I was participating in another forum was about rapid prototyping. How do you get the customer or the ecosystem partner to gain the experience that they are going to get before we actually build something, before we actually put tons of money behind something, hoping that the idea will stick? How do we rapid prototype it? And we heard a lot of that in the previous conversations as well, that instead of wasting money behind ideas and tons of money behind ideas, can we spend some money and some effort behind a quick rapid prototype to get the experience to the user the fastest, and they will tell us if at that price and that experience they're willing to pay us or not, are they willing to work or not. So we focus, at least at IdeaForge, as much as possible on coming up with goals and strategies that are very, very focused on what is an experienced option and strategy rather than a option which is merely an idea at this moment on the table. It may be a great idea, but it is still an idea that may fail. So that's one other thought that I thought I wanted to share. And then, of course, I think it's very important to have a very flat culture in discussions. A lot of times the loudest voice in the room speaks the most, feels like that voice is the only voice that should be heard and that's the only voice that matters. But there are enough examples, and when I heard of this, again in a forum, it's a very beautiful forum called Unreasonable, and what they said was that there are a lot of times arguments that, font, like somebody had a problem at Google X, right? Google X had to decide what font should come up on the Google Lens. Now, the loudest voice in the room said that the font should be red in color, right? And everyone, like, they made 20 arguments, theoretical arguments that, red is this color, this, that. All of the arguments came together. Everyone sort of felt that, red is the right thing because the loudest voice in the room or the most powerful voice in the room ensured that everyone is convinced that red is the right color. Then somebody at the back of their mind felt that there's something wrong with this discussion, right? Let's do a rapid prototype. What they did was they put a projector on somebody's shoulder and put a small screen in front of them and made tons of people go through the font color. And they realized that actually yellow is the best color instead of red. So that's the difference between, the loudest voice in the room versus all the voices in the room getting heard and, decision being done on the science. Decision should not ever happen on, the loudest voice. It should happen on the science. If, there is no proven science on any of the ideas, then it's useless. Because it will work or not work, we can't bet our future on it. It will fail, or it might fail. It's too much to risk, particularly if the investments are very large. Right? So I think that's the intent that we try to pursue. And what is the expectation, right? I think there has to be some expectation as well, and that's what helps. When you have the right people, it helps get that expectation down, is that ultimately our teams have to be loyal to the customer's experience, right? Ultimately, who's giving us as an organization our bread and butter, right? Our customers are giving us our bread and butter. Their experience with us and their experience matters the most, in my opinion. The other thing which often is very challenging to find, and we will find this problem more often than not, is 360-degree thinking. Often we will sit in a room and a lot of arguments will happen, but we will find that ideas sometimes get debated and discussed, but they don't account for all the variables that affect a business. Sometimes they are very siloed, and we spoke about functions, departments, because they become very siloed. Everyone's trying to defend their turf. Everyone's trying to make sure that their idea is right. And every time you'll hear in the room that my idea is great, but for something that somebody else said, and then they will stick to that idea, hoping that that other problem will be wished away. But that's not the reality of the world. The reality of the world needs ideas that work holistically, and therefore creating that culture and demanding that thinking is, I think, something very important. Of course, the experts can probably help us chart out methods of doing this better, inculcating this better, but I feel this is very critical because I do find that missing many a times when we are having brainstorming sessions and conversations, right? And of course, I think ultimately all of this is due to the absence or the lack of curiosity and clarity. More often than not, we assume things when we hear, rather than seeking clarity and being curious about knowing more about what our customers want, knowing more about what their experiences are, or even knowing more about the problems of our own colleagues many a times, because we are not curious enough to know why are they coming from a specific perspective. That curiosity at times is missing. And there was this beautiful example that one of the sessions that I had in the Unreasonable Forum gave us is that they spend 50% of the time going and learning more about the customer's problem, which we heard, right? Like knowing more about customer's problem, understanding their context is very, very critical. And often we end up investing a lot of time and energy in reports and marketing studies, missing and putting a lot of our future and fate on customers' ideas. I also believe that customers' ideas are not necessarily a great vector to begin with. I think it is their experience. It is their genuine problem that is more critical, because that's what they might likely spend money behind. They are unlikely to spend money behind their own ideas because they may be extremely ephemeral. They may be extremely on the edge. They may be something that they imagine they need, but they may really not need it because their experience is different today. For example, a two-wheeler owner graduating to a four-wheeler is not likely to appreciate all the features that maybe a cutting-edge car has, right? At that time, they will only probably appreciate four wheels rather than appreciating everything else. And once they have a four-wheel, they might appreciate a little bit more about what else is out there. So I think that's something which is very important. And of course, how to enable that, again, a question for the experts. But eventually, everything breaks down because people defend their turf. And I have a couple of very funny examples, right? Apparently, there was somebody who left their job in US, came back with a few $1 million with the idea to sell to one of our forces, right? That we want to sell a bio weapon detector. So it's a huge problem. I mean, why should our defense forces or whoever not buy a bio weapon detector, right? They should buy a bio weapon detector. We should not be facing that threat. And everyone said, yes, I would want a bioweapon detector. 3 years down the road, without a single order in hand, and 3 million down the capital, one thing they realized was that they definitely don't want to buy the bioreactor. Even though they want it, theoretically, they imagine they want it, but they don't want to put money behind it. So then he went and asked, what do you really want? The funny bit was, they wanted something that can survive their job. They did not want something that would be modern out there. Only thing that they could come up with was that something that will help survive their job or their presence. And I think this is something which is very, very important to understand and absorb, that more often than not, even functions within our own organization end up trying to defend their presence, like after sales or some of those functions, customer service. Like customer service ideally should not be needed, right? I mean, why should customer service be needed at all? Unless and until you're a service-oriented business, customer service is not needed. It should be something that doesn't exist. But the reality is that if you go to a customer service presentation, they will be proud of the number of servicing that they did. Now, should we be proud of it or should we be ashamed of it is the question, right? Half the time they won't tell the product or the engineering that what they should be fixing so that they do less of this. Because they're defending their turf, right? So I think I think how to break all of this down, as I'm posing a few questions along with, sharing my thoughts, but that's a reality. I just feel that when we acknowledge some of these realities, we tend to be a little bit more pragmatic about what we are solving and how we are solving for it. I mean, last but not the least, I think somebody said this earlier as well, but I'll just put it out there, that it's insanity to think that whatever we've been doing is just going to work. It's going to produce the same results. We have to think out of the box or out of the frame. It's just not possible to get better outcomes by doing the same things over and over again. With that, thank you so much. I hope I've been brief enough.
Okay, I know that we are running against time, but I promise you a damn good lunch. We promise that we'll have time for questions. We are a bit late, but I'm sure people have questions in their mind. So I'm going to ask all the speakers if you can just come up the stage so people know whom they're directing their questions to. So if you have specific questions towards any speaker, you can just name the speaker and ask the question. But if you have a generic question to then any of the speaker can take lead and answer the question. So questions, please, and mic ushers. Are you guys around to usher the mic? Okay, great. So questions, raise your hand. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Okay, here, front, that table here.
Good afternoon. Myself Rakesh from Kuma Metal. Actually, everybody is telling innovation should be continue, but for any particular innovation, we have to give any timeline or how to find out the timeline for the innovation.
Rajiv, you want to take that? Or Kaihan, Rajiv, any of you?
So actually, when you said define the timeline, I would suggest your organizations, whatever the business challenge is, that should define the timeline. Innovation doesn't have a timeline. You, by all means, define what the business challenge is. That should define the timeline. Innovation is changeable, right?
Okay.
Where your priority is, that should define the timeline.
Right. Thank you.
Can you add to that?
I think it depends what you mean by innovation, the ideation, the selection, and the execution, the learning. But the ideation phase, I think that there are some need-driven innovations, and there's just some ideas that create possibilities that you didn't know were not possibilities that you were aware to. So the concept that I like is, I call it the fourth option. So that there's a point at which people stop thinking when they start repeating themselves and they say, the answer is 1, 2, 3, or we've always done A, B, C. And the habit of saying, in 5 minutes before you go into the client meeting and say, we always do A, B, C, but what is a fourth option? Or when we price something, we always do it this way. What is a fourth? That habit, I think that could be turned into continual, at least the seeding of ideas that can drive innovation.
Thank you. More questions? Yes.
So hello, I'm Prashant Joglekar. I represent a management consulting firm, BMGI. So I have a question for Kaihan. You talked about entrepreneurs. So that's a very good concept. But an organization is an entity, and there are a group of people who I would say call the shot or responsible for whatever that they do. Now, these people come up with an idea, they have something to prove, but unless and until it is acceptable to everyone to be offered either a product or a service to a market, it's very difficult to get it through. So, I mean, as a concept, it is good, but is it really practical, or what's your experience around it? And that's why these people then break away from the company and start their own startup, because they say that here is someone who is going to finance me and I will do what I want to do rather than what my company thinks I should do. So what's your take
I think
on this?
then that's a value that the company could have benefited from that it's lost. Those opportunities have gone out of orbit, right? They've lost out of their orbit. It's another kind of metaphor, I guess. But one thing you see that these successful internal innovators, what they often do is they take the idea and they don't take it to their boss. They don't take it to the obvious place. They find another place in the organization. Like, for example, there's a gentleman, 1960s, he arguably had the greatest impact that any individual has had on solar energy. He brought down the cost of producing a kilowatt of solar energy 80% down. The problem is he worked for a big oil and gas company. And he knew the oil and gas company wasn't going to support the idea. So here's what he did. He said, oh no, this isn't a market opportunity. The issue is that we, on our offshore oil rigs, we have an energy problem. This is solving an internal problem. And by positioning it that way and getting permission to do it that, he got funding and he got a team and he got to continue his work. The guy that invented Sony's PlayStation, he didn't take it to Sony's technology group. He took it to the entertainment group, the music group. So there's a trick there that they do, that they don't take it to the obvious place always. Yeah.
What I just like to add something, that in entrepreneurship, it's not about randomly asking people for ideas. Ultimately, the organization has challenges, right? So in this space, what can we do? Then they invite ideas. So it doesn't start with, so what do you think? As a challenge, right? We have a strategic direction, we have a challenge. Then invite ideas, then it will sync. The question is of syncing. I thought what you were referring to, at least how I understood it, that let's take on challenges and then invite. Then you'll find the two will connect, the energy of an entrepreneur and the direction of the organization. Otherwise, it could go astray completely also.
Yes. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Vikas Patel. I am from Kumar. My question is to Mr. Kaihan. This is about that 4 model of employee innovation, about ad hoc and dedicated and diffused and focused. Most of the time, I see the companies are in opportunistic, means ad hoc payment and diffused team. How can I define the team size to change to focus, and how I decide my budget for the company? Because I have to sustain. I cannot provide unlimited money for innovation because I have to pay to my employees. So what is the criteria, or how can I define that?
I'm just going to frame it up, and I would like to see what you say, because I think what I liked about your program, or Tata's program, is they both have need-driven innovation and they have solution-driven innovation, technologies that haven't found needs yet and needs that haven't found solutions. Now, there's also another dimension, which is formal activities and informal activities. And the informal activities, whether those are need-driven or solution-driven, they're happening in hallways, around water coolers. It's very hard to see and measure those, right? I personally am interested in the informal, either need or solution-driven, for which there is no budget, there is no team, there's no answer, but you have much more experience in the formal, so I think you would have a better answer.
I can share a quick response, perhaps integrating all 3 questions. Without naming the company, there is a company in the Tata Group which has allocated X rupees to top 20 people for only trying something which is uncertain, which is risk in some uncertain. You don't know what will happen. And the person can spend that money in trying something which is uncertain, no questions asked. That the moment the person finishes that X rupees, he gets one more X, another X. So it's very difficult to spend such money. It's not easy. That's point number 1 that I wanted to make. It's just an answer to response. And the second one was, I think, just to respond to your point, is that we believe most of the companies have something called suggestion system or idea system. We don't believe in that. We feel it doesn't work. And therefore the responsibility, normally organizations give it to the employees, you give ideas and we'll figure it out. We believe that the creativity has to be broken into 2 parts. One is defining the box, I'm using his term. That responsibility or frame, whatever you call it, that responsibility is with top 20, 30, 50, 100 people, depending on the size of the organization. They need to decide, which means problem statements. We call it wicked problem statements. Once you decide the wicked problem statement and you put the money beside it, that I'm going to spend for sure this money if somebody has a fantastic idea, then you start inviting ideas. Otherwise, in a pure idea management system, which I have grown, you typically get ideas on laptop is not working and washrooms are not very good, my salary is not so good, my taxis are not very good. So you typically get such ideas, is what I have seen. I have given myself these ideas, to be honest. And therefore, we believe it has to be broken, creativity has to be broken into two parts, leadership has to take a role, and then comes the role of the employees.
Hi, I hope you could see me. So thank you guys, thanks for your inputs. My name is Rishikesh, I lead the marketing efforts for Classic Marble Company. And my question is I don't know whether that's a cultural question or an organizational issue, but as a part of the leadership team, there are two aspects that we always find difficulties upon. So one is creating conducive environment for people to think, like you mentioned, out of the box, out of the frame. One is creating conducive environment and then creating sense of responsibilities that if the task is given to XYZ person, and how do I feel responsible about it? So how do we can't fix this problem with this conversation, but at least if we can give us the bird's eye view on this perspective, then it'll help all of us. Thank you so much.
So what I can suggest to you is one way of, I think the question you are raising is more from an organization and institution question. So one is, so to ask individually to be entrepreneurs, but the entire management system, if you notice, the biggest challenge we are facing today is the organization's design today is a remnant of the industrial age. And yet we are facing challenges of Industry 4.0 with the mindset of Industry 2.0. For example, the biggest challenge that what I'm hearing from you, which we faced, is performance goals are all about under-promise and overachieve. Right? So we can't think of innovation challenges as performance goals, because then under-promise begins. So for example, in fact, Marico was a pioneer there. The one thing they did was to twin track goals. One is business as usual goals, plus what will you prototype next year? So everybody had to come up with one area where they'll try out something new. So the outcome is an experiment, it's not a result. Now when that starts to happen, and this was across functions, across levels, that was unleashing new thinking, right? So we, by design, break away from the traditional performance goal setting to performance goals plus experiments. What will we try out next year? That unleashes thinking, and across the levels, people had prototyping budgets. Which was to enable quick, rapid prototyping to actually happen. So that's I hope, the institutional insight.
I just wanted to add that sometimes, leadership speaking last is always helpful because you end up listening to everybody. I think that is very simple to get everyone in the room be heard. And more often than not, I feel that people who generate the idea are the best people to experiment on it as well, because and you need to give them that freedom, liberty. We can guide them if it is far too expensive. We can guide on a way of rapid prototyping it, but usually when you get the idea, you have the maximum ownership on that idea, right? So it's hard to get buy-in on merely ideas from everybody in the room. So if you have an idea, I mean, we generally encourage people to just go and implement it and come back and see if there is merit in pursuing it in full scale. So it just works slightly better in that fashion.
Sorry, I need to come in here. Innovation is all about contradiction, so I'm going to contradict a bit here. We believe that the person, at least in large organizations, could be different seen in your organization. We believe that the creative person is not necessarily the best person to implement the idea. So what we do is, in our case, is that the moment the person shares the idea, we believe the idea now belongs to the organization. Now the organization should put the best team in place to implement that idea. So in fact, we take pride in successfully detaching the creative guy to implement the idea. It's just a thought. As I said, innovation is creative, is confusing, so I wanted to confuse you.
I love that.
Well, I think there are various school of thoughts, and I think it's just all right. Yeah.
I think it's also important to know that, and you spoke to this, you don't know if it's a big idea until after the idea is generated. If you say, hey, come up with a big idea, right? Now, IKEA, transformed its industry. Why? Because someone was trying to get, 10 years after it was founded, an employee was trying to get a table in the back of someone's car, and it didn't fit. So he took off the legs, he folded it, and he put it in, simple idea. And they said, well, why don't we do that always? And that disrupted the whole industry. You don't know these, you can't recognize ahead of time that these are going to be the disruptive ideas. So I think it's important to allow people to share ideas regardless of whether they're big or small.
I had a question.
Yes.
Hi. We're currently seeing that in India we're at the cusp of a huge growth. Over the next 2 decades, probably we'll have the finest and the largest entrepreneurial growth that we've ever had in our history. And in that sense, the topic today, as well as really thank Ashish for bringing this up, and to each of the speakers for dealing with it beautifully at every level. Now, one challenge that I have in my mind that I think could be something that resonates with everyone. I'm a part of many entrepreneurial communities wherein the finest talent or the finest startups are those who are maybe 10-member teams or 20-member teams and growing from here. Yet, the need for innovation and to realize that there is something that is needed at this stage is still not somewhere at the back of the mind, because innovation is always equated with something that is in terms of resources or in terms of budgets that is large or probably can be taken up by corporates like Tata's. And for that matter, I'd like to congratulate Ankit. Still the perception is that maybe someone from an IIT or someone from who's differently abled, so to say, is able to do it much more than people at grassroots level. People who are, mom and pop stores, for example, or founders of second generation, not founders, but second generation entrepreneurs. Innovation it seems to be a faraway concept. So how does one really get it down to that level and start off from there because I believe if that is something that is brought down to that level, it could be a game changer in sort of, the quantum of innovation that we'll see going further.
What's your name? We didn't get your name.
Nirav Somaiya.
Nirav.
I'm from the real estate industry.
Okay. The largest, one of the largest hotel owners is not an IITian, by the way, Oyo founder. So well, thank you very much for typecasting the IITians. But yeah, anybody who wants to take.
So I think, like I mentioned, I think all progress is going to happen or is going to happen by whoever wants to fix a challenge that they are really motivated by, right? Ultimately, I don't think the origin or the background matters. What matters is that are you motivated enough about solving a problem? And how are you wanting to solve that problem? Often you will find that, and I call it the plague of the Indian industry, that we end up just copying what somebody else found value in. We don't try to better it. We always try to undercut it. Let me put it this way. And I think that's one pitfall that we need to avoid as we grow as a nation. We need to build better. Every time we see somebody doing something, we need to find a better way of doing it. And that will genuinely unleash value for the country as well as value for the entrepreneurs. But background does not matter. Only I think motivation matters for solving that problem. If somebody is not motivated, not deeply connected to the problem, they will give up. And no progress will happen if people give up on ideas easily.
So my question
I
was...
love the way, Ankit, you're really living your vision, or if I may say mission, world's best or world's first. Everything that you say is there.
No, in fact, I loved what you were doing, and I'm seeing that in the country happen, right? We are no more happier just being the best in India. Yeah. But now redefining it, and what I see you doing is great. I would wish many more really step forward to do that. But to really respond to that, I think the core part of what you are talking about, we have to demystify this fact that innovation means resources. So I would think that for the entrepreneurs, innovation is where I think the biggest pitfall in startups is we get wedded to our own idea. And actually where the biggest gap by far, which doesn't call for money at all, is actually then go out and engage with consumers to dig out where is the gap, where can this idea become value finally? So actually I would urge you to think a lot of innovation processes actually don't require resources. They actually require the acumen, the capability act, and to even recognize that. I would think that can be our biggest value add to these people, to convert great ideas into winning value propositions and winning business models finally. Which can actually, I would say, even speeden up their pace of success. So, and break this myth forever that it's all about having lots of money and deep pockets. Not at all, actually. It's a matter of how we do it differently. There again, I have a big quarrel with all the accelerators, which is again are talking about 5% success rates and are happy with that. Honestly, 5% doesn't even need the accelerator. That would have happened in spite of us. We need to be aiming for 100%, nothing less than that. So entirely learnable, most of it.
So slight clarification there. See, today for corporate like Tata's, wherein they're 1,000-member team, to dedicate 3 resources or 5 resources is one thing. But where we're talking about 10 or 15-member teams, 20-member teams, everyone is dealing with day-to-day firefighting challenges, operation issues. Usme, how does one, beyond the mindset, how does one go about creating a structure and creating the action needed to go beyond the usual and say, okay, chalo, let's innovate?
Actually, here beyond the usual would be the execution obstacles in this case. Till the time they don't grow up, innovation needed to grow the idea, right? It's not another idea. Right now, we need the energy to find new solutions to the challenges we are facing. So it's really we shouldn't be distracted with something else, I would think. Even that, but it will call for a lot of innovation to even solve for the obstacles which will come along the way.
Just wanted to add, I think one of the things that we try to do is we try to incubate those ideas in a sometimes leadership at the highest level has to incubate those ideas, has to handhold some ideas that we believe have conviction to change something in the long term. But just being smart about executing it, not dumping all resources, but having exclusive resources carved out. Whatever can be affordable, however the problem can be broken down into a small enough piece that can validate the assumptions behind it. Sometimes it takes longer doing it by keeping it very small, but it entirely depends on what you're gunning for, right? If you're gunning for a quick overnight success, if the opportunity is a market grab opportunity or a land grab opportunity, then you will behave differently versus if it's an opportunity to solve a long-term problem for customers that nobody's focusing on, then you may have a little bit more time on testing it, experimenting it. But I found it useful to incubate those ideas slightly exclusively, and I've seen actually good results out of that, really good results out of that. Yeah.
Super, thank you.
Okay, we'll take one last question, and then we can have, maybe during the break. Yes.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I am Idea Guy. That is my consultancy name, and my major job is to create the ideas. And that's the sweetest and laziest way to make money I found earliest in my life. As Mr. Ravi Arora said, it is not the right person who come up with the ideas is the best for the execution. That I realized early in my life. I can generate 100 ideas, but I cannot implement one. So I found out the way how to make money with the ideas, and that's how the Idea Guy generated. My question to Rajiv, Narang, Kaihan, and Ankit Mehta. The process I develop my ideas or I generate my ideas are through meditation, and I accidentally come across it. Being into spirituality, I meditate for 3 hours a day. And that's not something someone forced me, that's my passion. And then I realized I generate, like ideas get popped in my mind during those meditation. I found out, I researched, I didn't know how it worked. Then I found in neuroscience in Western universities, it has been researched when you integrate right brain and left brain, the ideas automatically pops up. And as Mr. Narang said, seeing the ideas in one sector and adopting into the another, that was the easiest and most easiest way to generate the idea. So my question to all of three, as a consultant, have you integrated meditation or leisure time in your daily lifestyle? Because again, Mr. Ravi Arora said, the person who generates the idea should be different from the person who is executing. Everybody knows we get into firefighting daily and we don't have even time to think of our kids, how to raise them. And we are busy in the daily life. And that's where we cannot generate the ideas. So my question again, have you integrated that meditation part? Not necessarily the meditation. It can be the breath work, which we Indian context we call pranayam, or the leisure time where you just sit with pen and paper. That's it. And nobody is there to disturb you during that time and you generate the ideas. That is question number one. And another question, probably you can help me out. Again, the quote is, it is easier to raise a stronger kids than to repair the broken men. Now we are discussing the innovation. In 30s and 40s, teaching the innovation and problem solving mindset is difficult. What I am thinking, if we can teach this mindset to the kids who are into like 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I am working on to that project. So any of you guys are interested to join hands with me, I would be definitely interested to work.
Why do I feel we're in a Shark Tank kind of a situation?
The reverse Shark Tank, right? Sharks are on the other side.
Okay, very interesting take.
I would try to say three quick things. One is, you're absolutely right. It's about, there's the default mode, and then there is, I forget, the intentional mode. And at work, we're in the intentional mode. We're trying to achieve outcomes, and we need to have space to be in a default mode, which allows greater random connections between our brains, which is what creates the ideas. And I think meditation is a great way to do it. I do it on Sundays. I sit in the pool and I read the New York Times, and ideas start coming to me. They may have nothing to do with what I'm reading, but my body's in the default mode. That's one thing. The other thing is, the term we use, outthinking, is because we think that language are problem-solving tools. And when you can't solve a problem, it's because the language tools that you're using don't allow you to see the option. And so by connecting with people who come from vocabularies outside of your vocabulary, if you're with a whole bunch of doctors and you can't solve the problem, hang out with an artist or someone else, right? So in our peer network, we have people from lots of different industries sit in a room like this, and they start talking, you start getting this transfer of language through them. Yeah, and I agree. I think that there's a much better chance of our children are the ones that'll solve the major problems. This is kind of a random thought, but I do think that esports and video gaming is actually helping our children be better problem solvers and team workers than us. And so, yeah.
That is damaging the brain more.
I would be sitting in a pool on Sunday with a glass of beer, not meditating for sure.
So I think, I think if we distill down the challenge, I think what you are recommending is finding time for reflecting. And I think personally it is extremely crucial, at least in my journey, to always have time for reflection. The other thing, and a very fascinating thing I thought will be fun to share, is that once we were trying to design our organization a little bit, and one of our investors said that, Ankit, as the CEO, you should be doing nothing. And there were two parts to the problem. One is, of course, that doing nothing implies that you're thinking about everything or the most pressing problems without getting bogged down with execution. And second, what he mentioned was that it gives you the ability to question. Because when you do, you will always do something wrong. Anybody who's doing anything is going to do something wrong. And therefore, your ability to question sometimes as the leader whose job is to ensure execution is on track, is a little bit better if you are not necessarily engaged into executing something very specific, or maybe when you're incubating ideas, you're not being judged for the success or failure of that idea. But broadly, I think carving out time, reflection is something that everyone should inculcate. I think it's very, very useful as a practice. Yeah.
100%. I mean, that reminds me, we were doing a research a few years back, and it showed that about 83% of Indian leaders and managers work at 1 or 2 levels below their current titles. We're just doing what we shouldn't be doing. We're doing essentially a job which is, if you're a CEO, you're doing a job of general manager. You're a general manager, you're doing a job of a manager maybe. Because, of course, there's a different subject altogether. There's inability to let go, empower people, and sometimes also the will that we don't want to let go. Okay, I'm going to call I know you have more questions. We have an hour, hopefully. You have a flight late. Hope you're staying back. Hope you can stay back for a while. People might have some questions. If you have any questions, you can go in person and ask. I'm going to invite my colleague Vikashkar to summarize and do a word of thanks. Vikash. I'll clap for you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's a pretty difficult job for me to summarize this eclectic session, if I may say, the kind of insights that have been shared. But nevertheless, I will still give it a shot and attempt. Okay? As I formally give my vote of thanks, I think this whole incredible session of driving innovation from within has been truly remarkable one. And this is the first of our 2 days HR and Anexi Summit that we know, the FutureScope. I want to take this moment to express my sincerest gratitude to each one of you who have made to this event today. To our distinguished speakers, thank you for sharing not only your invaluable insights and experiences, but also your passion for innovation within the organizations that you have served and you are supporting. Your insights in fostering an entrepreneurial mindset and driving meaningful change from within will undoubtedly inspire us to rethink how we contribute to the workplaces that we are in and in our own roles. Your thoughts on fostering innovation within organization have opened up our minds to new approaches. Your perspectives have inspired us to act in our own workplace. Cultivating innovation culture is a continuous journey, and you have provided us with some insights to navigate it. Now I have a huge note, that I have picked up to summarize, and I'll go by the same turn which the speakers had given their keynotes. Yes, I'll stop when it's 2 minutes. Okay. Now, starting with Kaihan, I think absolutely a brilliant note today. Some of the aspects that I have noted down, and I'm sure all of you will resonate with it, is innovation has been not something that the organization are craving for today. It's been there all this while, and it's at the grassroots level where the innovations truly germinated, and organization need an appetite to truly scale it well. He gave us a beautiful metrics, and we had a question also on that, which is the diffused and the ad hoc model, that how to make innovation work and everyone counts in an organization. He gave us the complete perspective on the innovate model, and I'm personally excited to be a part of the session tomorrow, the workshop, where we will look at a lot of meaningful exchange of ideas and the models, how to create the outthinking model. He also gave us a beautiful example of proximity, that how the world is moving more closer and more intimate to the customer and the consumer. And as he was speaking, 2 examples that came to my mind very quickly, which is all over the news these days, is the Amazon and the Blinkit, where Amazon thought that it has really cracked the code by the delivery models, the last mile delivery. And today we have the Blinkit, which is saying, man, you place an order in 10, 15 minutes, I'm at your doorstep. So the world is changing rapidly. 2 very exciting terms which I personally came across today was the corporate antibodies and the value blockers. Wow. He also spoke about some of the models which we need to evolve, which is from the proof, plan, and execute to act, learn, and build. Excellent, sir. And something that we keep as a part of our consulting journey, we keep trying to build in organization, which was mentioned today as a part of his keynote, was create micro enterprises where you build entrepreneurs within with the mindset of PL and ownership. I'm not sure, Mr. Khan, whether I have been able to summarize some of the key highlights, but that's what I took as a note. Moving on to Mr. Arora. Okay, again, great journey of the Tatas. Tatas has been an inspiration to all of us. Whenever we think of a great organization, a value-led organization, we think of Tatas, and today's session gave us a complete different dimension of how a conglomerate actually has been driving the innovation within agility. And some of the aspects that he mentioned was fear is the biggest impediment to the innovation, and how the entire Tata group has been building a culture which is driven by a fearlessness. He also spoke about something very interesting. We all talk about various forms of capital. He spoke about patient capital. I think that's something that we all round with pretty soon in organization, and I hope that as a key takeaway, we realize that when we drive change, when we drive transformation and ideas to action in organization, it requires tremendous patience. We need to stay connected to the purpose and possibly to show us some light at the end of the tunnel. He also spoke about a beautiful model, which is the CERTS model that they use, which is it's that the processes that are practiced consistently will become the culture. And with great experience, he showed that how it has really helped the Tata Group to sustain over a century in terms of driving innovation and continues to push the boundaries. Next was Mr. Narang. I have heard you earlier also, outstanding today as well. Orbit shifting, and we all know the gravity and the inertia. We kept studying those as a part of our school curriculum, and we know how it keeps us still, looking for something better in life. He spoke about that orbit shifting is the purpose, innovation is the means. He he spoke about what are the different impact streams that we should be able to create. Are you keeping a watch, right? Yeah. I'm still just 1 minute down. Okay. Okay. He spoke about, fixing the problem is not alone the reason, it's about how you eliminate the problem. He gave us various examples of how the mindshift changes should happen through real life examples of his own consulting experiences from a defender to attacker strategy, or it is from capability forward to challenge back piece, or it is from more participative to generative. And there were huge insights in his session. And last but not the least, Mr. Ankit Mehta, I think he embodied the example of the true India to the world of how, as his inspiring thought process and the tenacity he has built an organization that not only he's proud of, I think each one of us sitting in this room is truly proud of that, how the technology of India is truly, defining the future of technology across the world. He, as some of our panel members said, that innovation is all about some bit of contradictions. Yeah, there was a contradiction. He said, ideas don't matter. And all this while we thought ideas do matter. But he had a caveat to it. He said, what matters is a strategy, which is a collection of real options. Yeah, I think that's a bit of, I would say, a paradox between the philosophy and the science. So I personally, I think it's a great takeaway, but I'm still churning that thought. Okay, so I think these were some of the key highlights. And to all the participants, I would say thank you so much for your enthusiasm, your questions, and the engagement throughout the session. It's clear that the spirit of entrepreneurship is pretty much active and alive in this room. And as we return to our work, we are going to take all of these insights and bake them into some meaningful activities. And we can push the boundaries and make some real meaningful change, not only in our workplace, but the society as well at large. Now, on that note, thank you, audience. All those, I don't know how many people connected virtually, but we had over 150 people in the room. And I'm sure the equal number were connected virtually to us. Thank you so much for your attentive participation. It was a great event. And on that note, thank you so much, everyone.